The city is under siege, and MC wakes up to a world at war. Burning debris rains down from the sky as the bombardment continues. Energy blasts tear through the city defenses, and the shockwaves echo as everything begins to collapse. School life looks deceptively normal at the elite academy, where the instructor outlines the ruthless standards for the upcoming placement exam, pushing every student to fight for a spot in the top 10. While MC arrives late, desperate to prove himself after a 2-year recovery, knowing this is his only shot at reclaiming a future as a martial artist. Despite the constant mocking from the arrogant students who think he's a lost cause, they circle him to laugh at his return, and the school bully tries to intimidate him with a sinister threat. MC stands his ground, refusing to be pushed around by these elitists, while the bullies continue to test his patience in the crowded hall, wondering if he's actually capable of backing up his newfound confidence, and the bully warns him that even a small mistake could get him disqualified. While plotting to cripple him in secret during the chaos of the exam, MC ignores the noise and focuses on the high-stakes cultural questions on his screen, grinding through the complex political history that dictates this broken world, and finally hits submit to secure his place in the trials ahead. MC aces the cultural test with full marks, knowing his 2-year coma was actually a secret training ground, and he heads home to his father, trying to hide the intensity of his new abilities. But he accidentally drops his exam ticket while walking through the door. His father picks up the ticket, warning him to be more careful with such a vital document. They sit down for a meal together. Though MC is clearly distracted by his secret mission, the father pulls out a package of vitality powder, claiming he bought it to help MC prepare, a high-level supplement that costs a fortune, yet the father insists it is worth the sacrifice for MC's future. MC looks at the expensive gift, knowing his family is already struggling to make ends meet. He tries to refuse the help, but his father forcefully hands it over, refusing to let him go into the trial unsupported. MC finally accepts the gesture, realizing his family is betting everything on his success. Later that night, MC realizes the powder cost $20,000, a sum that could have kept them safe for months. He knows the pressure is mounting, so he slips into his meditative state to prepare for the looming dangers. The mental barrier shatters as he enters the crystal space, a deadly dimension where he fights for his survival. Monsters swarm the crystal, forcing him to draw his blade and hold the line against the endless assault. Surviving here is a brutal loop, as he must defend the crystal or risk waking up in a ruined state. He constantly balances his real-world rest with the unrelenting combat required inside the dream. Every wave he clears boosts his spiritual power, rewarding his struggle with the strength he lacked 2 years ago. A system alert flashes, warning him that the next wave of monsters is already closing in on the objective. MC lunges into the fray, his sword cutting through the enemy ranks with newfound precision and lethal speed. He cleaves the final monster of the wave, securing the crystal for another night as the system counts his kills. MC takes a breath as the system interface glows, showing he's still hitting well below the elite martial artist threshold. His current status is barely scratching the surface of what he needs to compete with the top-tier talent. A sharp system notification cuts through his focus, warning that the 5th wave of monsters is already spawning. The massive giant lizard crashes into the arena, its roar vibrating through the very ground beneath his feet. Flames erupt in a massive torrent as the beast unleashes a deadly breath attack, forcing him to scramble away. He barely dodges the initial wave of heat, his eyes locked onto the giant lizard's next predatory movement. The beast follows up with a savage claw tear, shredding the air where MC stood just a heartbeat before. A massive tail whip lashes out with blinding speed, requiring him to duck and weave to avoid being crushed. He skids across the floor, dodging the tail by a hair's breadth, and regains his balance for a counter after countless deaths and retrees. He finally finds the beast's internal rhythm and starts to anticipate every strike. MC channels his technique, launching a precise strike with his blade as the lizard's guard momentarily falters. The light sword style connects, but the impact only makes the beast go berserk as it starts losing control. A grim realization hits him that the creature's rage is escalating far beyond his initial combat projections. The giant lizard lunges again with terrifying intensity, forcing him into a desperate struggle for survival. He takes a glancing blow during the exchange, but manages to shake off the impact without suffering a major injury. Breathing hard, he forces himself to stay calm, reminding himself that he has the experience to win this fight. MC parries a massive swipe with his blade, using the momentum to vault himself over the creature's back. He maneuvers behind the lizard, striking at its exposed flank while the beast is still locked in its own rage. A clean hit sends the beast reeling, giving him the opening he needs to distance himself from those lethal jaws. He eyes his next move with predatory focus, ready to finish this cycle and claim the victory he needs. The beast unleashes a torrent of fire, but the protagonist exploits his smaller frame to dodge the flames. Steel flashes through the air as he lunges forward, aiming for a critical opening in the creature's defenses. The giant lizard roars in fury while its internal heat begins to surge, signaling a final, desperate attack. Agility becomes his greatest asset, and he drives his blade home with a focused, precise thrust. A concentrated burst of energy tears through the monster's hide, silencing its roar for the very last time. Massive weight collapses onto the ground, marking the definitive end of the beast's long, destructive reign. He pulls his sword free from the carcass, breathing heavy as the adrenaline finally begins to recede. The system chimes with a success notification, rewarding him with a permanent boost to his mental power. He reviews the newly acquired visualization method, recognizing it as a rare technique for boosting his mental fortitude. There is little time to celebrate the victory. Since the system warns that the next wave approaches, shadows of incoming threats loom in the distance, casting a grim pall over his brief moment of respite. He settles into a meditative pose, deciding to focus on internal growth before the next onslaught begins. The visualization technique appears in his hand as a glowing light, drawing his full attention inward. He enters a deep state of concentration, letting the technique guide his focus toward a higher level of awareness. A towering, shadowy entity manifests before him, testing his resolve through a harsh and unforgiving mental trial. The sheer intensity of the vision leaves him gasping. But he finally understands the true weight of the technique. He snaps back to reality within his room, the mental exertion leaving him drenched in sweat. A knock at the door interrupts his training, and the girl from earlier walks in with a curious expression. He stands to greet her, stripping off his shirt while trying to regain some semblance of composure. She takes one look at his physique and can't help but comment on how much he has changed. The girl teases him about his sudden change in appearance, playfully messing with his hair. She genuinely seems shocked by the transformation, barely recognizing him as the same person from before. He realizes the visualization technique is working faster than expected, then grabs his bag to head out for his exam. His father offers a quick word of encouragement as he steps out the door, ready to face the world. Arrival at the high school gymnasium marks the start of the assessment, and the arena is already buzzing with activity. He tests his physical control, feeling the benefits of his new mental training coursing through his limbs. A familiar face from his past life spots him, immediately starting to mock his long 2-year absence. The rival and his sycophants surround him, throwing insults about his past academics, standing to humiliate him in public. He fires back a sharp retort about their own failures, and the tension in the room spikes instantly. His cold, calm response only fuels the rival's anger, making the arrogance of the group even more apparent. The rival threatens him directly, but he simply dismisses the empty talk with a smirk that says it all. A friend steps in to de-escalate the situation, warning him that starting a fight before the teachers arrive is a bad move. The group finally backs off while throwing empty threats over their shoulders. Though the hostility is far from over, his friend whispers that the rival is definitely out for blood, but he remains unfazed by the looming threat. The friend explains that the rival has powerful connections in the school dean's office, giving him an unfair advantage. Rumors suggest the assessment has been rigged in favor of the rival, and he realizes the deck is stacked against him. An announcement clarifies the test structure, splitting students into groups for strength testing and direct combat duels. The exam process begins, and his friend urges him to focus on the task ahead rather than the petty drama. The system guidelines for the sandbag test flash on the screen, showing the brutal elimination criteria for this round. He eyes the target, aware that he must strike with enough force to pass while saving energy for the upcoming duels. MC steps up to the testing machine with pure focus, locking in on his goal to dominate with raw speed. The rival also prepares for his turn, radiating arrogant confidence as he boasts about having strength to spare. The first group assessment officially kicks off, and the atmosphere in the gymnasium turns heavy with anticipation. MC unleashes a thunderous strike that tears through the air, proving his power is far beyond the basic requirements. The impact sends a shockwave rippling across the arena floor, forcing every onlooker to stop and stare in disbelief. The rival's lackeys erupt in cheers, obsessed with their leader's supposed dominance and his rumored punch force of 1,400 jin. One of the lackeys mocks MC, claiming that their boss is setting the bar and someone is bound to get eliminated. His smug smile fades instantly when the results board registers a massive, unexpected number for the target. The sheer force of the impact leaves the testing equipment shuddering, and the crowd goes dead silent. An observer notes that 1,500 jin of force is unheard of for someone at that level, and the rankings start shifting. The rival's younger brother watches the display with wide eyes, struggling to process how MC has grown this strong. Experts in the crowd analyze the data, confirming that a life intensity of 5.1 produced that 1500 Jin strike. A faculty member demands to see the file on MC. Suspicious of how a student with his history could pull off such a feat, the teacher reviews the records, finding it impossible to reconcile his recent suspension with this current level of martial skill. The rival approaches MC directly, his ego bruised by the display and eager to manufacture a confrontation. He challenges MC to face him on the stage, turning the entire assessment into a personal grudge match. The official announcement calls for the combat duels to begin, and MC steps forward without a second of hesitation. The rival grins with predatory intent, fully prepared to crush MC and reclaim his status in front of the school. Onlookers whisper that despite the rival's technical advantage, MC has already proven he can defy expectations in a real fight. MC draws his weapon to accept the duel, signaling that the real showdown between him and his rival has finally arrived. The arrogance in the rival's voice marks the end of his winning streak. Because MC is about to shatter his world, a flurry of steel fills the air as the two combatants exchange blows with lethal speed. MC parries the incoming strike with surgical precision, his blade catching the light as he holds his ground. Momentum shifts the moment MC pivots, delivering a crushing blow that forces the rival to retreat in pain. Kneeling on the ground while the crowd whispers his name, MC prepares to prove that he is the true powerhouse. The rival screams his defiance to the heavens, desperate to protect his reputation against the rising threat. Energy surges across the stage as they collide once more, creating a shockwave that rattles the entire arena. Every movement from MC is calculated, weaving through the rival's wild attacks to find the perfect opening. Shouting for MC's death, the rival launches a desperate final assault, fully committed to ending this fight right now. Dust kicks up as they lock weapons, the sheer pressure of the clash threatening to break the floor beneath them. Focusing entirely on the upcoming challenge, MC realizes that human opponents require a completely different strategy than monsters. Light erupts from MC's palm as he channels his power into a concentrated strike, aiming to disable his opponent. Gravity seems to vanish as the rival is sent airborne by the force of MC's counter. Watching his opponent struggle to regain control, MC maintains his calm, waiting for the exact second to strike. The rival lunges forward with a hidden blade, hoping a dirty trick will finally give him the advantage. Steel rings against steel as MC deflects the surprise attack, refusing to let the rival's desperation turn the tide. Blood sprays from the rival's mouth after a brutal direct hit, signaling that his stamina has finally run dry. Reaching for a concealed dagger, the rival tries to salvage his pride, but he is already far too slow. MC locks the rival's arm in a vice-like grip, effectively neutralizing his weapon before he can even swing it. A thunderous palm strike lands squarely on the rival's face, ending the match and officially crowning MC the winner. The arrogant rival hits the floor hard, completely unconscious after that final brutal strike. Onlookers scramble to comprehend the result, whispering about how the underdog managed to win without any foul play. Medical staff rush onto the scene to haul the battered rival away, leaving the arena floor clear. A voice calls out to MC, who finally turns back to acknowledge the interruption. The teacher stands watching the aftermath, his expression unreadable as he studies the victor. Approaching his mentor, MC offers a formal apology for losing control during the high-pressure combat. A dismissive pat on the shoulder follows, with the teacher reminding him that training injuries are just part of the process. Noting the rival's pathetic state, the teacher demands a full report for the academy leadership. Confirmation crackles through the comms, and MC decides to head out while the facility is still quiet. Reaching the training room, he finds the virtual combat capsule waiting for his next session. Accessing the system, he recalls how these devices simulate high-level sparring partners for every student. Internal sensors map out his movements, pairing him with digital mall artists of equivalent skill levels. Realizing he has only ever fought monsters, he checks his current rank and finds he is still sitting at bronze. Plugging the device into the network, he notes that the rival will likely be barred from entering the elite class after such a crushing loss. The system displays a global record, confirming that this hardware tracks the elite ranking for college entrance candidates. Settling into the chair, MC prepares to engage the simulation and start his climb through the official rankings. Activating the interface, he calculates that a high placement here will guarantee his path into the elite academy. The virtual environment flickers to life, pulling his consciousness directly into the digital arena. Staring at the display, he realizes this will be his first real test against human-style combat patterns. The system initializes his training avatar, and he gets ready to prove that his recent win was no fluke. MC enters the simulation arena, but he is immediately caught off guard by the absence of an opponent. A voice rings out behind him, criticizing his slow reaction time before a blade closes the distance. MC realizes he is not facing a simple AI bot, but a highly skilled digital combatant. The mystery girl launches a blindingly fast strike, forcing MC to narrowly deflect the incoming steel. She pauses the assault to mock his lack of awareness. Noting that real exams won't give him a polite greeting, MC acknowledges the lesson, shifting his grip on the blade as he prepares to abandon his defensive stance. The girl moves with impossible grace, weaving around his guard while forcing him into a desperate retreat. She executes a precise thrust that MC identifies as a classic sword maneuver. He struggles to parse her form, questioning why a martial artist would rely on such rigid, textbook techniques. The girl maintains relentless pressure, leaving MC with no room to analyze her origin or training. She taunts him for his lack of foundation, questioning why he would ever constrain a sword to a fixed form. MC tries to trace her movements, but her familiarity with his sword style leaves him completely baffled. His focus wavers under the barrage of attacks, and he struggles to identify her specific martial arts roots. She seizes the opening created by his hesitation, delivering a swift, precise blow that cuts through his guard. MC finds himself reeling from the hit, realizing too late that his opponent specializes in unconventional, underhanded tactics. The system declares the girl the winner, forcing MC to admit that his raw power was no match for her technical edge. Analyzing the combat logs, he recognizes the flowing light sword style she used to dismantle his defenses. He realizes his own fighting style is far too front-loaded for these kinds of precise, assassin-like counters. Opening the tactical interface, MC decides to adjust his approach to incorporate more versatile combat patterns. He enters the next simulation, determined to master the mechanics behind these expert-level human combat styles. MC launches into the arena, unleashing a powerful strike that catches the heavy-set opponent off guard. The big guy claims his martial arts are superior, but his arrogant confidence vanishes as MC floods the area with energy. Energy surges through the battlefield like a beacon, and MC channels his focus into a singular, piercing point. The opponent mocks MC for overstepping his bounds, yet he is physically yanked forward before he can even finish his taunt. MC executes a blindingly fast technique that cuts through the air, forcing the brute to scramble for a defense. Impact ripples through the arena as the two forces collide, leaving the larger fighter reeling from the sudden pressure. MC teleports behind his target with a lethal thrust, finishing the match in an instant as the system confirms his victory, sheathing his blade. MC reflects on successfully landing the complex thrust technique for the very first time. He pauses to contemplate the deeper philosophy of sword mastery and what truly defines a skilled combatant. True skill isn't about flashy movements, but rather the ability to adapt between rigid strength and fluid grace. He realizes the sword is a vessel that can strike like a storm or flow like a quiet river. MC grins while acknowledging that the blade remains an undefined weapon, meant to be shaped by the user's intent. System notifications flood his vision, confirming his rapid progress in the sword arts before he logs out to grab some food. Checking his wrist interface, he notices he has officially broken into the top 10,000 of the regional youth rankings. The achievement hits home, and he stares at the screen in disbelief at his sudden climb up the ladder. He commands the interface to expand his profile, revealing his current standing across multiple prestigious youth lists. Scanning the data, MC realizes his recent performance has catapulted him into the elite ranks of the regional youth list. His spot for the upcoming advanced class is finally secured, signaling a major turning point in his education. He walks toward his high school with a new sense of purpose, leaving the virtual arena behind for now. Arriving at the campus gates, MC spots his friend waiting nearby, and he quickens his pace to head over. The school dean blocks his path and demands a formal greeting, but MC just offers a casual nod. The dean points out his lack of proper school uniform, but MC stands his ground while the crowd laughs at the absurdity. A bystander whispers that the dean is the uncle of the guy MC beat in the arena, and he is clearly here looking for trouble. The dean lunges forward with a pointer stick, but MC easily catches the weapon mid-swing with his bare hand. The dean screams about non-compliance and school regulations, while MC just stares back with a confused look on his face. Fury clouds the dean's face as he realizes MC is talking back, so he lashes out with the stick again. MC snaps the stick in half without breaking a sweat, and the dean threatens to have him expelled for insubordination. Just as the situation escalates, the school principal and the city mayor arrive on the scene to see what the commotion is about. The dean immediately points at MC to blame him for the conflict, but the principal is looking at someone else entirely. The mayor ignores the dean and approaches MC with a wide, friendly grin to get his attention, confirming his identity as the top-ranked student. The mayor shakes his hand while the surrounding crowd starts to buzz. The mayor admits they came to campus specifically to scout him for his recent rank. and the dean looks like he just saw a ghost. News of his top 10,000 ranking spreads to the nearby students, and the dean's face turns pale as he realizes his mistake. The students gossip about his new status, and the dean stands frozen in shock. Knowing his nephew is no longer a threat to someone like MC, the mayor insists they head to the meeting room to talk, and the dean is left sitting on the ground in total defeat. They walk toward the meeting room while discussing his immediate transfer to the elite class. Inside the room, a top-tier student from another school stands ready, and the principal formally introduces the elite group to the mayor. Eyes lock between MC and the rival student, and they both acknowledge the tension without saying a single word. The mayor takes his seat and explains the goal of the meeting, which is to organize a competition for the top senior students. He reveals that every city is sending their 3 best martial arts students to compete, and the clock is already ticking. The tournament requirements dictate that only fighters above level 15 can qualify for the upcoming regional competition. Winners stand to gain massive college entrance points and a cash prize starting at 10,000 yuan. The mayor asks if MC and the other students are ready to put their reputations on the line. The guy suggests that a virtual combat format would be safer for everyone involved in the trials. District leaders have already mandated that real physical combat is necessary to test true life intensity. MC internalizes his current ranking and realizes he is already well within the top 20. His own rapid improvement speed gives him the confidence to aim for the top 3 spots. The principal notes that even high rankings do not account for the immense psychological pressure of the arena. MC steps up to confirm his participation in the event without a moment of hesitation. The guy follows suit and commits to the challenge alongside him. The mayor praises their youthful ambition before dismissing them to return to their regular classes. MC realizes that securing a top 3 finish would finally allow his parents to retire from their grueling labor. He walks back to the classroom determined to make his family proud. Finding his assigned seat occupied, MC prepares to just take any empty spot for the time being. A student immediately confronts him and demands to know who he thinks he is. The bully looms over him while the rest of the class watches the conflict unfold. MC doesn't back down and stares him straight in the eyes. He thinks it is pathetic that students are still resorting to petty bullying in this day and age. The guy steps in to tell the bully that MC is a new student who needs time to adjust to the rules. The bully notices that MC possesses a life intensity level at least 2 grades higher than his own. The bully backs off with a warning, but he is clearly rattled by the power gap. The guy quickly films C in on the local hierarchy, where seat numbers dictate your social standing. Monthly seat rankings are decided through brutal combat, forcing the bottom 10 to stand during lectures. MC notes the heavy pressure in the room, but he is far from intimidated by the atmosphere. This is the start of the month, which means a formal challenge period is about to begin. MC isn't just worried about sitting in a chair. He wants to know exactly how much strength he needs to exert. Higher seat rankings provide better access to essential cultivation resources. Securing a top spot directly impacts his monthly subsidy, which is vital for his growth. With that much on the line, MC decides he is going for the highest rank possible. The instructor calls the class to the combat room, officially marking the start of the challenge phase. Students file into the arena, ready to stake their positions for the coming month. The proctor confirms that each challenger gets 3 attempts to prove their worth in live combat. Without wasting a second, MC steps forward and demands a match against the current number 10. The proctor pauses, surprised by the sheer boldness of such an early challenge. Classmates whisper in disbelief, shocked that a newcomer would aim for the top 10 right out of the gate. Even the proctor doubts MC has the skill to match his intensity, but he accepts the request. MC draws his blade, fully aware that 10th place offers a significant boost in resources over 11th. His focus narrows entirely on his opponent, locking in for the fight ahead. The financial incentive is more than enough motivation for him to risk an early defeat. The current number 10 sneers at MC, dragging a massive weapon into the ring as he prepares to crush him. MC confirms the 10th-ranked rival is his target, refusing to back down from the challenge. The rival laughs off the audacity, fully expecting to crush the newcomer without any real effort. An observer watches as the rival readies his massive hammer, clearly intent on teaching MC a lesson. The observer notes MC's sudden eagerness to prove himself, though he remains skeptical of the outcome. Despite the risk, the observer treats this match as a necessary trial by fire for the rookie. The proctor signals the start of the duel, and the atmosphere in the room shifts instantly. The rival taunts MC to prepare himself for defeat. Tightening his grip on the heavy weapon, MC ignites his energy, choosing to meet the threat head-on rather than playing defensive. He maintains a calm focus, waiting for the massive hammer to close the distance. The rival swings with full force. mocking MC for being too slow to dodge the incoming strike. Classmates watching from the sidelines realize the rival holds a higher life intensity, making the gaps seem impossible to bridge. An observer notices MC's life intensity has surged to 5.2, creating a sudden, unexpected power shift. The rival gloats, convinced his swing is about to end the match in a single blow. His hammer slams into the ground, but MC is already nowhere to be found. The rival registers his surprise as the strike misses its mark entirely. MC counters with blinding speed, closing the distance while the rival is still recovering. He executes a precise strike that sends a shockwave through the arena. The sheer force of the impact launches the rival into the air. He crashes hard onto the arena floor, completely stunned by the sudden reversal. MC follows up with a specialized technique, pinning the rival down and securing his victory. The rival asks how MC reached Tier 1 perfection so quickly, and he credits a sudden overnight breakthrough. Disbelief crosses the rival's face as he processes such an impossible jump in skill. MC turns his attention toward the instructor for guidance. The proctor officially declares MC the winner, signaling the end of the duel. Onlookers murmur in awe, realizing he bridged an entire level gap with just one strike. A classmate admits he never expected MC to be such a hidden talent. The proctor asks if MC wants to challenge for higher ranks, but he declines to conserve his energy. Classmates swarm him, eager to exchange contact information after seeing his sudden display of power. Feeling overwhelmed by the sudden attention, MC reluctantly agrees to their requests. The defeated rival approaches to apologize for his earlier arrogance, finally showing some respect for MC's strength. The proctor watches MC carefully, clearly impressed by how he handled both the fight and the social fallout. He summons MC to his office, leaving everyone wondering what he could possibly want. The principal sits waiting in his office, and he gestures for MC to step inside. The proctor follows him in, bringing up the possibility of an early special admission to a top-tier university. The principal questions why MC is so interested in this specific path. He explains that top-tier schools require a Tier 1 perfect skill level, a threshold MC has yet to cross. The proctor insists that MC has the potential, urging the principal to let him test his skills on the spot. The principal agrees to the test, pointing to the testing instrument and ordering MC to recreate his winning technique. MC steps up to the device, centering his focus as he prepares to unleash his power once more. He draws his blade, the air around him shifting as he channels his energy for the decisive strike. MC drives his blade into the test device, channeling a surge of energy that tears through the air. The strike lands with such overwhelming force that the specialized instrument instantly shatters into dust. The principal stares at the wreckage in complete disbelief, noting that MC just reached the perfect Tier 1 threshold. MC apologizes for breaking the expensive equipment, but the proctor is already too distracted by the sheer power displayed. The instructor insists that MC is a combat genius, possessing a battle instinct usually reserved for veterans of real life and death struggle. He notes that MC's fighting style carries the weight of someone who has already survived countless lethal encounters. The principal agrees that such talent is a rare treasure, promising to prioritize MC for the special admission path to the top universities. MC asks about the actual benefits of this special admission, wanting to know what he is truly aiming for. The proctor explains that top-tier schools demand a life intensity of at least 6.5, which is a massive hurdle for any student. MC listens intently as the path to these elite institutions is laid out before him. Admission requires perfect Tier 1 mastery for the entrance exam, a goal that MC has already achieved. He asks if he can still attend other prestigious schools after the special admission, specifically targeting a university known for its martial arts. The proctor questions why he would choose that specific school when other famous academies offer more resources. MC recalls the trauma of 6 years ago when a giant race unleashed destruction on his home district. He remembers the defensive forces struggling to contain the threat, with thousands of lives lost before reinforcements finally arrived. The memory of that slaughter serves as the core motivation for his growth. He expresses a deep, quiet hope that his own family remains safe and peaceful. MC declares that if his home city ever faces a similar crisis, he intends to be the one who stands on the front line. The proctor observes that such a sense of responsibility is usually only found in those who have personally experienced total loss. He realizes that MC's drive comes from a place of profound tragedy, forcing him to respect the kid's burden even more. The proctor shuts down the idea of using other schools as safety nets, confirming that early admission locks MC into a binding contract. He points out that MC can bypass the grueling entrance exam requirements entirely by ranking in the upcoming 100 Cities Hegemony tournament. Accepting the advice to focus on that tournament, MC thanks his instructor for the guidance. Walking through the campus gates, he realizes the tournament is still over a month away. The school grants him access to an exclusive training room where he plans to live and push his limits. He decides to experiment with specialized performance-enhancing medicine to accelerate his growth. The world is dominated by three major forces, starting with the extreme martial palace that specializes in direct combat against alien civilizations. Then there is the technology martial palace, which focuses on upgrading human capabilities through advanced research. And finally, the Martial Artist Alliance, the organization responsible for maintaining order across all human territories. He reflects on the founder of the technology martial palace, a legendary figure whose strength is said to be unparalleled in the entire civilization. Approaching a clerk in the facility, MC requests to purchase a supply of Thunder Kai blood pills. The girl behind the counter confirms the item name but looks concerned about his request. She explains that these pills cannot be bought off the shelf because they require a rigorous endurance test to ensure the user can handle the potency. The medication is incredibly volatile and can cause internal chaos if the user fails to maintain mental focus during the absorption. Ignoring the danger, MC tells the clerk he has no other questions and is ready to start the test immediately. He reaches out to engage the testing interface while the girl watches with obvious hesitation. Stepping into the machine, he prepares himself for the intense physical toll. She watches him closely, clearly worried about whether someone at his level can survive the procedure. The testing machine activates, ready to push his body to the brink. He takes the pill and settles in, knowing that 10 days of agonizing cultivation are all that stand between him and his next breakthrough. Thinking the endurance test is a breeze, MC decides one pill isn't nearly enough to satisfy his hunger for power, so he impulsively swallows 3 times the recommended dose, banking on his own mental fortitude to keep him from breaking. But the moment the pills hit his system, his eyes widen as the sheer intensity of the surge hits him like a freight train. Raw thunder energy tears through his veins and forces him to his knees, his body buckling under the pressure of the volatile medicine. He grinds his teeth and dares the pain to do its worst, refusing to back down even as his own energy begins to consume him. Gasping for air while the storm rages inside, he struggles to keep his focus from snapping under the crushing weight of the thunder key. His system finally registers the breakthrough as his life intensity climbs to 5.3, giving him a much-needed boost toward level 6.5. Checking his remaining balance, he realizes the pill supply he counted on for a month will barely last him 5 days at this rate. The realization forces him to pivot his strategy, since he now has to secure a top 2 finish in the tournament just to keep funding his cultivation. The side effects of the massive dose catch up to him, leaving him temporarily paralyzed and unable to move his own limbs. He shifts his focus to mental cultivation instead, deciding to grind out his mental power stats, while his physical body remains locked in recovery. Clenching his fist as he pushes through the mental strain, he feels his internal reserves expanding to accommodate the new energy. Reflecting on his recent slaughter of those green giants in the crystal space, he knows his combat experience is already paying off. He finally manages to regain control of his body and stands up, ready to head back to the academy after his grueling marathon. Flashing back to the intensity of the training, he knows that survival in these trials is the only way to forge real strength. He wipes the sweat from his brow and heads off to class, determined to make the most of the resources he just bought with his blood. The teacher steps into the lecture hall and announces a special lesson on advanced martial power attachment, strictly for the top students. She explains that mental power is the key to true mastery, noting that only those with a high enough internal intensity can hope to learn it. She emphasizes that higher mental power allows a warrior to achieve twice the results with half the effort by streamlining their energy flow. Describing how to channel that power, she shows how to concentrate mental energy into a single point to skyrocket his explosive combat potential. The instructor explains that mastering mental power attachment is the only way to utilize every ounce of physical strength. She warns the class that mental power is a limited resource and urges everyone to prioritize their life intensity score for the entrance exam, demanding that every student stands for a test. She manifests a crackling surge of energy to prepare for a demonstration. She reveals she will use a flute to play a song of exhaustion, which will measure the mental resilience of every student in the room, picking out the protagonist specifically. She notes that he can opt out of the test, so his entrance exam score remains unaffected. The protagonist realizes the teacher is just trying to save face because she expects him to fail miserably. Refusing to back down, he interrupts her to announce his participation in the trial regardless of the risks. She sighs at his stubbornness, privately deciding to counsel him later once he inevitably collapses from the mental strain. Lifting the flute to her lips, she commands the entire class to focus their minds and bodies for the incoming barrage. The protagonist steels himself for the sound, while his classmates look on with intense anticipation. Suddenly, a stranger in a suit confronts him outside, accusing him of killing over 400,000 beasts and demanding an explanation. His lackeys surround the protagonist, claiming he must have stolen a young master's supply bag to achieve such a feat. The henchmen draw their weapons and threaten him with violence, demanding that he stop resisting their search. Lightning fast, the protagonist draws his own gun before the men can even process his movement. The henchmen freeze as they realize the kid is far more dangerous than they initially assumed. He coolly informs them that he is a student from a prestigious city and questions if they really want to escalate this conflict. The man in charge identifies protagonist as a student from the city's top academy and begins to worry about the political fallout. He realizes that if the kid is truly a genius combatant, attacking him could mean missing out on a massive potential asset, shifting his tone to a diplomatic one. The man explains he is searching for stolen martial arts techniques and asks for cooperation. He offers the protagonist 10,000 yuan as compensation for the search, hoping to avoid further trouble with a potential prodigy. MC demands 30,000 yuan as a condition for the search, betting that his lack of stolen techniques will keep him in the clear. The thugs begin a thorough pat-down, checking every pocket and bag while he stands his ground. Finding absolutely nothing of value, the leader begrudgingly pays the fee and orders his men to stand down, breathing a massive sigh of relief. He realizes he dodged a bullet and narrowly avoided a complete disaster. He puts the thugs behind him, prioritizing a quick shower and a change of clothes before heading to the Warrior Association. Back in the safety of his hotel room, he finally has the privacy needed to analyze his accumulated martial value. With 534 points saved up, he realizes his hunting efforts have paid off in a massive way. He notes the threshold for the intermediate stage is 200 vitality, and he calculates that he has enough points to cross it, deciding to prioritize physical growth over mental stats. He prepares to dump his accumulated value into his vitality. He pours points into his mental stat as a test, but quickly notices that the upgrade provides zero tangible results. Shifting focus to his physical body, he funnels points into his ordinary body stat and immediately feels the raw power surge. Checking his updated status window, he confirms that his vitality is climbing rapidly while his martial value reserves drain away. He dumps the remainder of his points into vitality, pushing his physical stats well past the beginner stage limitations. A massive surge of energy erupts through his veins, forcing his body to adapt to the sudden power spike. The intense process leaves him temporarily drained, but his body begins the critical phase of physical recovery. He manages to stabilize his form, relieved that his muscular growth has finally settled down enough to pass as normal. Heading out to the City Warrior Association, he arrives ready to tackle the official examination. He registers at the front desk, and a staff member leads him deeper into the building toward the testing chambers. Passing through the halls, he catches the attention of other hopefuls who are surprised by how young he appears. The other candidates gossip as he walks past, whispering about how he arrived alone to take the grueling exam. The protagonist steps into the testing arena, his focus narrowing as he scans the advanced equipment. A failed candidate walks away after the scoreboard reports his vitality at 102. Another student clears the vitality requirement with a score of 105, and the examiner calls the next test. The candidate moves to the combat power machine while the remaining hopefuls watch closely. He unloads a heavy strike into the target, the impact echoing through the entire room. The machine registers a combat power of 1763, officially marking a successful test. Onlookers realize he is a disciple of a famous martial artist, explaining his overwhelming performance. A rival candidate eyes the protagonist with growing irritation, clearly doubting the supposed talent on display. The examiner turns to the protagonist, signaling that it is finally his turn to be tested. The rival mocks the protagonist for his young age, but the protagonist just brushes off the taunts. The next tester finishes, and the blood test device displays a score of 123. The rival stares in disbelief at the high blood score, insisting that the machine must be broken. He tries to convince himself that combat power is the only stat that truly matters for a warrior. The examiner beckons the protagonist toward the combat power machine, and he steps forward, realizing his recent physical upgrades are significant. He calculates that 40% power should be enough to pass. He decides to bump the output to 50%, prioritizing safety to ensure he clears the qualification. A blur of motion tears through the air as he lunges toward the heavy training device. His fist connects with the sensors, the sheer force of the blow sending shockwaves across the room. The machine struggles to contain the sudden energy spike, and the structural integrity starts to fail. The crowd watches in absolute terror as the protagonist completely destroys the testing device without even using a technique. The machine displays a 5,000-point reading, which is way past the threshold for a high-level warrior. Onlookers start whispering about the sheer absurdity of the kid's power. As the news spreads through the facility, two senior staff members exchange a look of genuine concern, acknowledging that the boy is a total anomaly. Far away at association headquarters, the branch president is busy buried under a mountain of paperwork. She gets a notification about a new prodigy, and she worries that more geniuses might threaten her position. An assistant bursts into her office, slamming the door open to report the massive anomaly from the test. Hearing that the kid broke the machine with physical strength alone, she realizes this isn't just a normal talent. The protagonist heads home after the chaos. Feeling the weight of the massive power he is now forced to manage, he walks past the school grounds, already planning his next move to keep his rapid growth under wraps. Tallying up the massive cost of his gear, he realizes that martial arts is basically a game for the rich. His phone lights up with a reminder about his training schedule, and he grips it with renewed intensity. Deciding to cut out all distractions, he commits to a regime that will push his body to the absolute limit. He arrives at his private training room, ready to test the limits of his recent breakthrough. Locking the door behind him, he prepares the environment for a session that would crush an ordinary human. He orders his training system to ramp up the gravity, cranking it to 5 times the normal level. The immense pressure hits him like a freight train, but he finds the resistance strangely perfect for his needs. A training bot activates in the center of the ring, and he draws his blade to start the 4th round. The mechanical arm swings forward with enough force to crater the floor, but he stays focused on his footwork. He knows taking a direct hit in this gravity will shatter his bones, so he dances around the reach of the bot, shifting his angle to exploit a gap in the guard. He prepares to strike back and finish the training sequence. The training bot flags efficiency issues, suggesting he minimize his movement to conserve energy, but he realizes the machine has him boxed in with no clean escape routes. So he decides to crank the gravity even higher to force a breakthrough. Dashing forward with a precision strike, he shatters the bot's defense and disables it completely. The bot initiates a desperate last resort mode, but he shuts it down instantly by forcing it into a terminal state. Exhausted from the session, he sits down to recover while his spirit energy begins to circulate again. He taps into his spiritual power to jumpstart his internal recovery. The system confirms his power levels are rising, feeling the strain in his legs as they go numb from the sheer intensity. He acknowledges his body is pushing past its absolute limit, and though his mind is still heavy, his energy reserves are finally stabilizing. He decides that sleep is the only way to fully restore his condition for what comes next. Waking up with a renewed focus, he enters the crystal space to sharpen his martial arts skills. Taking his first steps into the frozen dimension, he prepares himself for the challenge ahead. Knowing the Greenfire Giants are his next target, despite his past failures to take even one down, he draws his blade, determined that this time he has the power to win. Analyzing the green patches on their skin, he identifies them as sources of their healing energy, and he lunges at the giant, aiming to cut off that regeneration at the source. Finally realizing that once their healing is neutralized, these giants are nothing more than mindless targets. With the giant's regeneration finally cut off, the protagonist seizes the opening to strike, and he lunges forward with everything he has to deliver a decisive blow, landing a massive hit that shatters the monster's remaining defense. He stands amidst the dissipating energy, realizing the true potential of his current power levels. Feeling light and energized, he commits to his goal of placing in the top 3 of the upcoming tournament, and soon enough, he arrives in the city for the long-awaited competition. Checking into an upscale hotel, he takes in the surroundings while preparing to meet his fellow competitors, but an immediate conflict arises when a local fighter denies his entry to the sign-in desk. The ponytail-wearing fighter refuses to budge, blocking the path with an aggressive attitude, and he demands an explanation, insisting he arrived well within the required time for registration. The clerk behind the counter freezes up as the tensions between them start to boil over, watching the guy reach for his weapon. It seems like a fight is about to break out right in the lobby. Later that night, the protagonist checks his system interface to analyze his current spiritual attributes, but he hits a wall when a warning pops up, showing he lacks the points needed to master multiple techniques. Undeterred, he sits in deep meditation to focus solely on his cultivation and energy flow. Several hours of intense focus reveal a major problem, where his 7 spiritual techniques are constantly repelling each other. He realizes why other geniuses failed, as trying to cultivate multiple conflicting paths only leads to internal instability. Despite the danger, He experiments with manifesting two separate elemental attributes in his palms, and he tests what happens when he tries to force those two distinct energies to coexist. The result is a violent clash of elements that causes his power to cancel out in a blinding explosion. The protagonist realizes that thunder and fire share a deep elemental connection, and he begins to focus his energy, determined to force these two powers into a single, stable fusion. Despite the repeated failures causing dangerous feedback, he refuses to stop and insists on trying again. Dawn breaks over the training facility, marking the end of a long and grueling night of cultivation. Exhausted and drenched in sweat, he pushes his physical limits to sustain the concentration required for the technique. His hand glows with an increasingly volatile mix of energy as he nears a breakthrough. Shouting for the energies to finally bond, he channels his entire spirit into the unstable core. The elements collide and merge under his direct control, clicking into a unified state at last. Success finally arrives after hours of trial and error, leaving him with a glowing sphere of fused power. Eager to see what this new technique can actually do, he heads straight out to find a testing ground. The local combat square is empty, making it the perfect place to gauge his improved strength. He approaches a training drone equipped with a third-stage power detector to measure his current output. Deciding to hold back for safety, he strikes the target using only 30% of his total capacity. The sensor spikes to 2300, proving that even at partial strength, his power has surged significantly. Thunder alone packs a massive punch, but the real test is how it combines with the fire element. He weaves the two attributes together, creating a surge of energy that crackles with newfound intensity. Launching the combined attack at the detector, he watches as the force of the strike impacts the target. The display flashes 3041, shattering his previous record with just a fraction of his full potential. He realizes his vitality sits at only 123, yet this fused attack rivals a high-level first-stage warrior. The sheer destructive potential of this two-element fusion leaves him wondering just how powerful he will become when all 7 attributes finally align. Fusing 2 elements was just the start, so now the protagonist sets his sights on mastering all 3, finds a secluded rooftop to push his limits while testing the stability of his new, volatile core. Despite his ambition, combining 3 attributes proves exponentially harder than the last, leaving him frustrated by the lack of progress. Hoping for a breakthrough, he checks his system guidance levels and realizes he needs to maximize his points before the upcoming exam. The next morning, students flood the stadium at the high school for a monthly exam that carries higher stakes than ever. The principal announces a massive shift in protocol, declaring that the top performers will earn a spot in an exclusive, high-resource training camp. Whispers ripple through the crowd as the students realize this camp offers elite mentorship and rare cultivation pills. Confidence spikes among the crowd as they discuss the chance to learn under 7-stage masters. But he stays focused on the competition. His excitement falters when he hears that only the top 3 rankers secure a spot, making the path to victory incredibly narrow. Panic sets in as he realizes his peers have already hit first-stage warrior status while he was away training in isolation. Rivals brag about mastering advanced palm techniques, claiming their recent power spikes put them leagues ahead of the rest of the class. A cocky student confronts him, promising to humble him in the arena and prove who the true genius really is. Meanwhile, the principal paces the grounds, still hunting for the mysterious student rumored to have mastered the legendary palm technique. A sudden arrival catches the principal off guard as an old acquaintance steps onto the school grounds. The visitor greets the principal with a mocking tone, clearly looking to stir up trouble in front of the gathered students. He brings 2 of his own apprentices along, demanding a sparring match to prove his students are superior to the school's best. The principal recognizes the clear intent to humiliate his school, but refusing the challenge would look like a confession of total incompetence. Tension peaks as the visitor baits the principal, practically daring him to admit his own students lack the talent to compete. Just as the situation threatens to explode, an assistant rushes over to the visitor with urgent news regarding a specific student. The visitor turns his gaze toward the crowd as his assistant identifies the name that has everyone talking, pointing directly at the protagonist. The rival master marks the protagonist as a dangerous little monster, while the visitor recognizes the kid from a top-tier academy and immediately starts plotting, but 2 apprentices realize they are outclassed, nodding to each other in a silent agreement to avoid a total blowout. So they play it cool, acting like they were just joking around before admitting their own defeat to save face, which just makes the local teachers seethe with frustration at the visitor's smug, sarcastic attitude. And before any more words can be exchanged, the arena announcer calls for the next match, where the protagonist steps into the ring against a potential warrior, with his own mentors shouting warnings about the opponent's power level. Then the opponent taunts the protagonist, daring him to quit before things get ugly. But the protagonist doesn't even bother with a comeback, closing the distance instantly, and with one clean, precise strike, he shuts the taunting opponent down completely, leaving the guy to collapse on the arena floor, while the protagonist barely breaks a sweat. So the crowd erupts in disbelief, wondering how their classmate suddenly gained such overwhelming physical dominance, since a single move was all it took to dismantle a high-level warrior. And while the fallen opponent is carried off, the onlookers speculate if the protagonist has already broken through to the first stage warrior threshold, leaving the teachers to lament their own failures for not spotting such raw talent during the special training sessions, as the school head struggles to place where he remembers the kid from, sensing a deeper history he has yet to uncover. But there is no time to dwell, because the semifinal between two other top contenders is already underway, and the two fighters clash in a flurry of strikes, both pushing their limits as the intensity of the exchange spikes, with one fighter demanding his opponent use their ultimate technique to prove they are worth his time. Then they trade a heavy, earth-shaking blow that forces both back as they prepare for the final showdown. The fighter declares his dominance as he unleashes a burning strike, and the crowd realizes he has unlocked Attribute Projection, a power ranked right behind the legendary Thunder technique. But their shock deepens when the other contender displays the same ability, confirming that his gold attribute projection is even more potent than the fire, so the guy launches a counterattack, revealing he has mastered the technique just as quickly, and he channels the 5 rounds Thunder Palm to overwhelm his opponent, landing a series of heavy blows that shatter the defensive rhythm of the fight. As the observing veterans note that his refined mastery and talent are clearly exceptional, they agree that the gold attribute will likely secure him the win in the upcoming final, while the staff members start placing high-stakes bets on who will take the top spot. Then the tournament official calls the start of the final showdown between the two champions, and as they face off, one fighter taunts the other about their luck in reaching this stage, while the guy confesses he is bored of fighting weaklings and finally found someone worth his effort. He challenges his opponent to prove who truly deserves the title of the school's strongest, and immediately lunges forward to seize the opening initiative in the duel, vowing to settle the gap in their skills with a single, decisive movement. As the spectators watch in terror, realizing the Thunder Palm has already been fully activated, the guy's eyes ignite with a surge of raw, crackling energy, and he pushes his body to the absolute limit, forcing his opponent to react to the raw power. But instead of retreating, the opponent meets the strike head-on, shocking everyone watching the match. The two fighters trade rapid-fire blows, neither one yielding an inch of ground, and every strike creates a shockwave that rattles the entire arena floor. The guy realizes his 5 rounds of Thunder Palm have been countered by simple, precise punches, so he launches a desperate counteroffensive to regain his lost momentum. He feels the immense weight behind his opponent's strikes and understands he is fighting a monster. Meanwhile, the crowd and the instructors are losing their minds over the sheer scale of the power on display. One instructor notes that this level of talent indicates a rare, specialized physique, and the experts agree that while the guy is strong, his opponent has the advantage of a condensed attribute. The guy is forced back by the relentless pressure, his defense buckling under the strain. He realizes he can no longer hold back and decides to unleash his full power. With a roar, he charges forward, desperate to end the match before his stamina completely fades. The opponent observes the guy's shift in intensity and concludes that the time for testing is over. He decides to reciprocate the effort by channeling his own hidden potential, and he surges forward with a technique that crackles with raw, golden electricity. The guy stares in disbelief as he realizes his opponent has projected his own thunder attribute. This revelation sends the instructors into a panic as they struggle to comprehend the impossible display. They identify the technique as the legendary thunder guiding style, confirming the opponent's terrifying potential. Their final exchange obliterates the remaining distance between them in a flash of blinding light. The guy staggers, finally acknowledging that his opponent's thunder attribute outclasses his own golden energy, and the opponent smiles, knowing he has successfully forced the guy to show his absolute limit. The Thunder Master declares it's his turn, unleashing a devastating strike that channels pure, crackling energy. His palm connects with the guy's defenses, shattering his guard and sending him crashing into the floor. Blood spills from the guy's mouth as he stares up in total shock at the mastery displayed. His defeat is absolute, with the Thunder Master standing over him as the match finally concludes. Onlookers watch the display in a daze, unable to process how he achieved such a high-level technique. Murmurs erupt through the crowd as they realize the Thunder Master has reached the legendary 9 rounds. Instructors recognize the technique as the lost art, whispering that this kid is the true dragon of the city. They anticipate his inevitable rise, certain that he will soon eclipse the most elite geniuses in the region. The Thunder Master turns away from the fallen fighter, already looking past his current local competition. His mentors nod in approval, already planning his path toward the grander stage of the Magic City. The guy stands apart from the crowd, questioning if he can truly overcome 3 elite fighters in 2 days. His teammates wonder if he is intentionally avoiding a direct confrontation with his primary target. He admits to his partners that he feels guilty for pulling them into this high-stakes tournament. They ask how he plans to locate his target, given the massive scale of the training grounds. The guy explains that his target's pride will drive him straight to the most badge-heavy locations. He points them toward the primary exit, the most likely path for a high-scoring hunter to take. Dense fog rolls through the forest as the group moves to set their trap in the shadows. The guy signals his team to halt, sensing something unnatural shifting in the dark woods ahead. They peer through the brush, spotting a chaotic struggle occurring in the distance. A massive, unknown beast emerges from the gloom, leaving them to realize they are facing a nightmare from the crystal space. The guy realizes these crystal space monsters might actually originate from the spirit realm. A girl nearby blames the target for dragging them into this mess, but a massive wolf beast strikes her down, forcing her companion to shout a desperate warning before the target suddenly intervenes with a blast of blue energy to save her. He stands firm as dark energy ripples off his body, and the guy approaches, asking if they have actually seen his primary target nearby. The girl explains they found him, but he was already being hunted by a pack of these monsters. Her teammates confirm they were chased all the way here while trying to escape the chaos. She points toward the dense woods where they were last fighting. The guy notes there are no marker points in that direction, making the situation even more suspicious. He deduces that if the target is exhausted from fighting this many beasts, this is a rare chance to strike, and he orders his team to move out immediately. They sprint through the forest, asking the guy if he has a concrete plan for the ambush. His ally points out their destination as they close in on the combat zone. The guy warns them not to act recklessly and to strictly follow his lead. His team nods in agreement, ready to execute the plan. They close the distance through the trees, where the glowing red eyes of the beast stare back from the shadows, hungry for the prey currently backed into a corner, and they finally reach the edge of the Timberwolf forest to initiate the hunt. The team stops dead in their tracks, realizing they've been wandering through a labyrinth of fog without a single lead, and the realization hits them that they are completely off course. MC stares into the mist, finally processing the truth that they were led here on purpose. Just as a horde of beast wolves emerges from the dark, their glowing eyes fixed on the newcomers, MC quickly connects the dots, realizing they were fed half-truths to lure them straight into a monster slaughterhouse. 20 wolves swarm the perimeter, forcing the team to brace for a fight they never signed up for. Analyzing the pack, MC notes these wolves are far more potent than the ones in the crystal space. He identifies their primary attack patterns, warning his allies to avoid the spikes on their paws, and he shifts into a combat stance, channeling his energy to meet the first wave of claws. While in the observation room, the officials realize the squad has walked straight into a death trap. The staff watches the feat in disbelief, already preparing for the team's inevitable early exit from the tournament. An instructor confirms the dire situation. Noting the squad is currently surrounded by a medium-sized den, he estimates their survival odds at less than 10%. The principal explains that the badge navigation was designed to force these students into a brutal reality check. He notes that while the cities seem safe, the wilderness is intentionally crawling with threats to toughen up the next generation, yet he maintains that a skilled team should still be capable of defending themselves, even against overwhelming numbers. The staff discusses the leadership of the opposing squad, banking on their survival despite the odds. Back in the forest, MC ignites his aura, vowing that the wolves won't land a single hit on his team. He cuts through the darkness, putting himself between the pack and his allies, and with his plan in motion, he draws the wolves aggro, leaving the rest of the fight for his team to finish. The wolves lunged, but MC caught their focus, forcing the pack to shift their entire attention toward him. His teammate didn't hesitate, realizing they had to clear the surrounding threat to reach the guy's position. MC shouted for his partner to take 3 wolves, then immediately slammed his palms down to manifest a barrier. The earth erupted into a containment field, trapping the beasts and buying the squad a precious moment of breathing room. He moved with blinding speed, closing the distance to the next wolf before it could recover from the impact. His blade trailed a brilliant arc as he executed the second form of his technique. Then he seamlessly transitioned into the third form, carving through the wolf's defenses like they were made of paper. His energy crackled as he channeled more power, pushing his limits to keep the pack from overwhelming his teammates. The title card flashed as he braced himself for the next surge. He unleashed the fourth form, piercing deep into the wolf's chest with a calculated, lethal strike. Despite his precision, The sheer number of enemies began to grate on him as he realized the grind was just starting. The guy wiped a bead of sweat, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the remaining threats on the field. He gritted his teeth, frustrated that his own team was struggling to keep pace with the sheer volume of the assault. Analyzing the pack, he confirmed these wolves were hitting at level 6.5 intensity, making them a nightmare to handle alone. He noted the teammate holding back 3 wolves was already at his limit, barely keeping his defense together. The wolves roared, sensing his fatigue and pressing the attack with renewed, vicious aggression. His sword sang as he met the next charge, weaving through their claws with absolute, razor-sharp focus. He calculated that he had exactly 2 minutes to drop the pack size to single digits, or their chance to escape would vanish. The rhythm clicked into place as he finally hit the flow state, his movements becoming a blur of efficiency, and with the rush of combat fueling him. He locked his gaze onto the pack, ready to end the fight for good. The guy realizes the team still has a fighting chance if he keeps his tempo. Even though his teammate is already nursing a nasty arm wound, he pivots instantly, channeling his energy into a series of rapid, precise strikes to keep the closing beasts at bay. Standing his ground in the center of the arena, he forces the pack to respect his reach while his squad recovers. His injured teammate apologizes for falling behind, but there is no time for regrets when the wolves are closing in. The guy barks an order to retreat, warning that the enemies are about to hit their berserk state. His teammate hesitates, but the guy cuts him off. Knowing they have to move before the pack goes completely feral, he unleashes a flurry of swordplay, his blade cutting through the air to create an opening for the others to slip past. A wolf lunges at him with lethal intent, but he counters with a brutal strike that sends the beast reeling back. Momentum shifts as he keeps the pressure on, forcing the pack to scramble while he remains the primary target. He tells his remaining teammate to hold the line while he stays behind to stall, ensuring they make it to the next round. With his teammate finally bolting, the guy stands alone against the incoming wave of berserk state wolves. His grip tightens on his blade, his focus sharpening as he prepares to test his limits against the frenzy. He recalls facing 30 of these beasts in the past. Viewing this current swarm as little more than a refresher course, a massive wolf leaps for his throat, but he meets the charge head-on with a perfectly timed counter-strike. Sparks fly as his blade clashes against the beast's claws, the force of the impact vibrating through his entire arm. He notices the beast's intensity has spiked to level 7, realizing the situation is turning far more dangerous than he anticipated. Checking his surroundings, he keeps his guard up, knowing he is now the sole focus for every wolf in the arena. High-ranking observers in the stands discuss the match, surprised that a mid-tier pack has been pushed this hard by a single student. They watch with growing interest as he continues to survive, noting that he is far tougher than his record suggested. The observers start to question his true identity, sensing that there is something deeply unusual about his combat capabilities. The observers are digging into his background, noting that his raw talent seems far beyond his pedigree. They point out his fighting style isn't just standard training, it's instinctual and brutal. Curious, they dig deeper into how a student from an ordinary family could possibly possess such lethal reflexes. His sword technique isn't even at the highest tier, yet he predicts every movement before the beasts even commit. They realize he fights like a veteran who has literally climbed over a mountain of corpses on the front lines. No matter how much they analyze his records, they find zero evidence of secret training or elite lineage. Despite being completely unsupported, he stands firm in the arena, holding his own against the entire encroaching pack. He cycles through his techniques, using the forest breeze stance to deflect the wolves' coordinated lunges. His movements shift as he unleashes the thundering war drums, a barrage of strikes that pushes back the lead beasts, leaping onto a tree to gain a vantage point. He forces the pack to reset their formation. Sweat begins to bead on his forehead, signaling the first true test of his physical limits. Against this intensity, he acknowledges the need for a breakthrough, knowing he cannot just survive but must dismantle them. Spotting the alpha wolf lurking in the back, he decides to eliminate the leader to break the pack's coordination. He lunges directly at the alpha, ignoring the smaller threats to land a critical blow on the commander. His blade cuts through the air with surgical precision, forcing the alpha to scramble backward. He feels his stamina reserves beginning to drain, a dangerous sign that the fight has dragged on too long. Clutching his blade tighter, he decides that prolonged defense is a losing strategy and shifts to all-out offense. He dances through the melee, trading energy for speed to keep the pack from surrounding him. His speed is fluctuating as his muscles fatigue, making every movement a gamble against the wolves' reach. He drives forward again, determined to turn the tide before his remaining energy completely runs dry. The guy clashes blades with the alpha wolf, forcing the beast into a desperate defensive stance. He catches the wolf off guard with a swift strike that breaks through the pack's formation. His blade carves a deep arc through the air, sending the wolf staggering back from the impact. He takes a glancing hit that leaves a mark, but he ignores the pain to maintain his momentum. Realization hits him that he has finally found the rhythm needed to exploit the pack's coordination. He grunts through the fatigue, pushing his body to refine his technique and force a breakthrough. Memories of his training flicker as he realizes this fight is shaping his future beyond the arena. He channels his remaining energy into a single, focused strike that threatens to end the stalemate. Looking on, the senior recognizes that the guy is evolving right in the heat of battle. This is no longer just a competition, and the guy knows this is a turning point. He refuses to falter, fueling his resolve with the knowledge that he cannot afford to lose here. The guy unleashes a flash of blue energy, cutting through the alpha wolf's defenses with surgical precision. Noticing the shift in his own strike, he understands that his technique has finally evolved. He catches his breath as the pressure from the surrounding wolves begins to wane. The alpha wolf stares him down with glowing eyes, still standing but clearly losing its grip. He reflects on the heavy price of trusting others, but decides the cost is worth the victory. The senior observes the shift, realizing the guy is reaching a level that few could hope to touch. Watching the guy regain his composure, the spectators realize he is turning the tables on the pack. He commands the very air around him, whipping up a vortex that keeps the remaining beasts at bay. Stepping forward with newfound confidence, he prepares to land the final blow to finish the fight. With the alpha down, the guy's blade hums with a refined, wind-aligned energy that signals a breakthrough. Catching his breath, he feels the sword's trajectory finally harmonizing with the natural flow of his environment. His weapon has clearly transcended its previous limitations through this brutal, high-pressure trial. And the system confirms his technique has surged to Tier 1, 99%, pushing him closer to the peak. Meanwhile, the observers are losing their minds as they realize the guy has matched the level of top-tier martial artists. They note the sheer impossibility of his endurance. Given that the wolf then should have pushed any student to physical collapse, the senior watches intently, sensing that the guy's power output now defies standard Tier 1 expectations. He speculates that the guy's mental acuity is rapidly approaching level 10, a critical threshold for future growth. Reaching that level would mark a qualitative shift, potentially elevating him to the rank of a soaring martial artist. Despite the skepticism of some peers, the senior insists that the guy's current performance is nothing short of exceptional. Back in the field, the spectators notice another team conveniently avoiding the wolves. Realizing the game was rigged, the girl asks the guy if they have successfully secured the badges from the other teams. He dismisses the threat of the other teams. Knowing their leader is already managing the tactical situation, the guy confirms that with the other teams neutralized, the remaining badges are theirs for the taking. His expression shifts into a predatory grin as he realizes the path to total dominance is clear. He holds the captured badges high, savoring the moment their primary objective is finally within reach. Even with his tactical foresight, he remains wary of the carnage left behind by the recent skirmishes. A sudden, chilling realization hits him that his victory might have been too clean to be true. He notices a strange movement in the shadows, suggesting they are being watched by something far more dangerous. The remaining wolf carcasses shift as a darker, more lethal threat emerges from the deep gloom. The guy recovers one of the badges from the wolf carcass, confirming his progress is right on track. His peers observe the carnage and correctly attribute the massive beast kill count to the expert teacher. One of the observers notes the sheer scale of the slaughter but senses something is fundamentally wrong here. Panic erupts when they realize the elite team wasn't actually eliminated, and the surrounding area is a setup. Disbelief takes hold as the witnesses question how a single individual could possibly take down so many beasts. He steps forward, his presence shifting the entire dynamic of the confrontation as he reveals his true power. The guy drops the facade and bluntly admits that he was the one who personally executed every single kill. His rivals approach him, their bravado quickly evaporating as they face the reality of his combat capability. They demand to know how he spotted the deception, caught in a trap of their own making. He points out the obvious flaw, that the team's wounds were caused by weapons, which are strictly forbidden in this trial. A lethal threat looms in the periphery, watching the group as the tension in the forest reaches a breaking point. He recalls that his opponent frequently utilizes unconventional weapons in class. Realizing he needs to exercise extreme caution, the guy retrieves another badge from the remains and pivots the conversation to the location of the main rival. He discards a piece of intel, signaling that his personal interest lies far beyond mere badge collection. The guy declares his singular intent is to hunt down the rival, ignoring the petty rewards of the game. His rivals realize that the main objective of this challenge is not just winning, but a direct confrontation. He scans the navigation data, discovering the officials purposefully missiled them to engineer a collision course. The team realizes their trajectory was intentionally altered to force a meeting in this specific, dangerous zone. He closes the display, his resolve hardening as the final piece of the tactical puzzle clicks into place. The guy commands his opponents to drop their badges and vacate the area immediately, ending the standoff. The opponent screams in frustration, demanding to know what the guy actually wants from them. He keeps his cool, offering a sharp retort that he is just returning the favor for their earlier guidance. The rival team recoils from his cold tone, realizing they have completely lost the upper hand in this encounter. He watches them scramble to retreat, his expression unmoved as they finally concede their position. One of the departing fighters hypocritically spits back an accusation about his lack of martial ethics. The guy just listens, unimpressed by the irony coming from someone who tried to set a lethal trap. He sarcastically questions their moral standing, noting that a leader from their specific team has absolutely no right to lecture anyone. The guy turns to his teammate, explaining that the entire setup was a calculated deception designed to break their guard. They confirm the opposing team was carrying the high-tier character badge, validating his earlier suspicions about the rigged navigation, now holding both critical badges. He realizes the officials really did go out of their way to force this collision. His teammate grows visibly concerned, questioning if he is still planning to push forward and challenge the top-ranked rival. The guy checks his terminal, analyzing the current power levels and his own dwindling reserves after the previous skirmish. His teammate presses the issue again, warning that his exhaustion makes a direct confrontation with a top-tier expert incredibly risky. He admits his stamina is running dangerously low, but acknowledges that even at 89%, a forced battle remains a distinct possibility. The guy reveals he has already pinpointed the rival's exact location, and he plans to intercept them before they can secure more badges. He watches the defeated team vanish into the trees, his mind already focused on the next phase of his tactical plan. The guy pulls up the digital map, projecting a new route that bypasses the standard path to reach the designated meeting point. He traces the path with his finger, directing his teammate to follow this specific, unconventional trajectory through the forest. His teammate voices confusion over the detour, but the guy explains that the original path was clearly a trap meant to delay them. He finishes by confirming that the rival likely encountered a beast pack midway, and he intends to capitalize on that strategic opening. His teammate asks for clarification, clearly struggling to process the guy's unconventional logic regarding their path. The guy explains that the real danger isn't the destination itself, but the chaotic journey required to reach it. He points out that navigating the forest requires avoiding beast dens, and the most reliable route inevitably forces them into more skirmishes, tracking the beast density on his display. He warns that the competition is designed to break anyone lacking real strength or extreme luck. He emphasizes that their guard must remain absolute, because reaching the final mark is still a long way off. His teammate nods in total agreement, finally grasping the gravity of the tactical situation they are facing. The guy signals that they need to move immediately, their window of opportunity closing with every passing second. They bolt into the underbrush, closing the distance toward the meeting point with silent, practiced precision. His teammate brushes past the foliage, carefully suppressing the noise of their movement as they enter a high-tension zone. They suddenly freeze in their tracks, the guy catching the sound of footsteps echoing through the dense tree line. He realizes they have just stumbled into a major problem, his eyes widening as he processes the incoming threat. A lone swordsman emerges from the brush carrying a massive gear case, his presence immediately dominating the immediate surroundings. The guy recognizes the newcomer as a high-tier expert from a rival team, and he knows this encounter spells disaster. The rival notices them standing there, his expression shifting into a calm, predatory curiosity as he acknowledges their rank. He whispers to his teammate that this is a top-tier powerhouse whose strength far exceeds their current capabilities. The rival releases a heavy, ornate case from his back, the metallic thud vibrating through the damp forest floor. Multiple blades spring from the case in a flash, the rival preparing for a high-speed engagement without a moment of hesitation. The guy and his teammate pull their weapons in a desperate defensive stance, braced for a brutal test of their survival. The rival pauses his assault for a second, a mocking smile crossing his face as he addresses the guy directly. He taunts them about the bloodstains on his gear, claiming that fighting them while he is already exhausted would be a hollow, unfair victory. The rival swordsman declares that eliminating both the guy and his teammate is his primary goal for the next 2 rounds. He boasts about his team's 9-year winning streak and their absolute confidence in securing a 10th consecutive championship title. The guy watches the rival walk away, noting that the guy's combat presence feels remarkably like that of a true hero. Hearing this assessment, the guy is visibly skeptical of the rival's self-proclaimed status. The rival mocks the girl for her explosive combat style, finding it amusing that she acts like a hero while using unconventional tactics. She fires back that he lacks any sense of martial honor, arguing that finishing off opponents quickly is simply the most efficient path to victory. The rival glances at a hovering broadcast drone, realizing he needs to maintain a polished public image for the live audience. The guy eventually retreats to his hotel room, finally finding a moment of quiet to process the day's intense encounters. He immediately begins his daily mental refinement, pushing his focus into the void visualization method to stabilize his internal power. A quick check of the tournament status shows that 50 teams have advanced, and he knows he must eliminate 4 more competitors to reach the third round. He calculates that reaching level 10 in mental power will trigger a qualitative shift in his abilities. Achieving that milestone would practically guarantee him the absolute top ranking in the entire competition. The guy is suddenly interrupted, his concentration shattered as he realizes he has been tracked by an unexpected assailant. A powerful strike tears through the structure, the force of the attack signaling that his opponent is not here for a polite conversation. He finds himself confronted by someone who clearly has no interest in fair play or standard martial etiquette. The tournament broadcast continues to analyze the competition, highlighting top performers like the one who solo cleared a wolf den. The guy realizes his own name has become a focal point for the tournament favorites, which makes him a massive target. He steps into the arena as the system announces that both contestants' life intensity has been suppressed to level 5 for the match. The girl prepares for her own high-stakes engagement, her focus sharpening as she squares off against a longtime adversary. She finally faces the challenger who has been hunting for a chance to fight her for a very long time. The girl tosses out a casual challenge, inviting her opponent to bring his best fight to the high school arena. Her rival isn't buying the hype around her 10-match winning streak, so he draws his blade to test her legend for himself. She doesn't waste time on pleasantries and tells him he better start believing in her skill. A blur of motion tears across the floor as the combatants close the distance. In a heartbeat, steel clashes against steel, the impact ringing out as she forces the guy onto his back foot. Sparks fly from their weapons while they trade blows, neither one willing to concede an inch of ground. A system interface suddenly manifests, revealing that both the girl and her rival are sitting at a 90% martial skill index. Spectators in the stands murmur as they realize the new protective suits are using advanced sensors to calculate skill levels in real time. The rival unleashes a rapid series of slashes, his movements precise and aimed at finding any opening in her defense. She pivots midair, narrowly avoiding a lethal strike while preparing to counterattack with her own blade. Gravity seems to bend as she descends with a heavy strike, putting the pressure right back on her opponent. The system updates their status to 92%, proving that the intensity of their duel is climbing with every exchange. She lunges forward, her eyes locked on his movements as she looks for a way to break his posture. The rival realizes he underestimated her timing, struggling to keep his guard up against the sheer velocity of her attacks. Recognizing that he is maintaining perfect form, even while moving, she decides to ramp up the aggression for the next strike. A sharp focus settles over her gaze, signaling that she is ready to end the stalemate. She drives her blade down with enough force to shatter his defense, pushing the duel into its final stage. The martial skill index flickers to 99%, showing that the match has reached a critical breaking point. Feeling the weight of her incoming strike, the rival knows he has no choice but to dodge or face a total defeat. He narrowly shifts his position just as her weapon connects, barely escaping the full force of the blow. The female combatant lands a clean hit on the swordsman opponent, and the system logs her martial skill index at 95%. Blood drips from the swordsman's shoulder as he notes her trajectory change. Laughing off the injury while acknowledging her massive strength, the guy watches the duel from the sidelines, confused because he cannot identify the basic martial skills being used. She brushes off the damage and laughs, telling him that their real fight is only just beginning. A surge of energy radiates from her weapon as she prepares the next sequence of strikes. The swordsman narrows his eyes, focusing entirely on the shifting aura around her blade. She accelerates, her movements blurring as she channels power into a concentrated attack. The female combatant executes a brutal follow-up strike, forcing the swordsman to commit his full defense to survive the impact. The guy asks his companion why her skills are unrecognizable, and learns that the final 1% of the skill index is locked behind a tier barrier. His companion reveals that the progression is not a linear jump to 100, but rather climbs to 99.1%. He explains that this final stage is known as comprehension by analogy, which she is actively demonstrating in the ring right now. The guy realizes the technique involves using weapons for purposes other than their intended design. He observes as his companion identifies the swordsman's foundation as the cloak hammer technique. The swordsman channels the chaotic cloak hammers, preparing a high-pressure assault against her. She adapts her sword to mimic the weight of a heavy weapon, turning the field into a test of her technique's form. Her next objective is to project intent, ensuring the opponent cannot predict her true martial moves. The guy watches closely as he identifies the female combatant's style as the Holy King Staff technique. The swordsman unleashes the second form of his technique, creating a massive aura of pressure. She remains perfectly composed despite the overwhelming power being directed her way. She tracks his energy flow and locks onto his weakness, declaring that she has finally found him. The girl challenges the swordsman opponent's reality, stating that a sword simply cannot create clones. He grins at the observation, clearly enjoying the intensity of their high-stakes duel, and he calls for her next move. Ramping up the pressure even further, the swordsman unleashes the second form of his cloak hammer technique, tearing through the air with winter-cold strikes. She identifies a critical gap in his overwhelming flurry and prepares to exploit the opening. He baits her into the strike, claiming she has fallen for his trap. But the girl realizes the ruse too late as his counterattack connects. Her system interface spikes to 99.9%, signaling she is hovering right at the limit. Dust kicks up across the arena, obscuring the outcome of their final exchange from the onlookers. The guy and his classmates panic as they try to determine if the girl has been defeated. A flashback reveals the moments before the dust settled, showing the swordsman landing a heavy blow. He declares that her title of being invincible among peers is his now, but the guy notes the intense aura radiating from the arena. Thankful he did not face this level of power yesterday. The girl shifts into her own hidden move, the fourth stance of the Holy King Staff technique. Water surges around her as she channels the massive technique, turning the tide of the fight. The swordsman is caught off guard by the sheer scale of the energy she projects. She stands firm, her focus sharpened as she completes the transformation of her combat style. Her system interface locks in at 100%, confirming she has broken through the tier limit. The guy realizes the magnitude of her achievement. Noting she has reached a threshold only one major prodigy has ever hit before 18, the swordsman accepts his defeat, conceding that her mastery has finally surpassed his own. The guy is still reeling from the girl's display, noting how she kept those perfect-level martial arts hidden until now, while the older mentor recognizes the girl's true potential. Confirming she just broke her limit without even the team leader knowing, he emphasizes that maintaining fighting spirit is crucial, especially when evaluating these young prospects. Meanwhile, the observers discuss the girl's elite lineage, predicting she will likely be scouted by the top-tier martial arts university. She walks away from the arena floor, the weight of the previous duel still lingering in the air. The scouts continue to weigh their options, lamenting that their own university was just a bit too slow to secure these top-tier seedlings. Their standard remains absolute, as they insist they only have room for genuine geniuses in their program. The bracket shifts, signals flashing for the next confrontation in the tournament. Tension rises as the arena prepares to host yet another high-stakes exchange. The guy, however, is losing interest in the minor bouts, feeling bored after seeing such elite power on display. A new matchup is announced on the board, pitting the guy's teammate against a formidable opponent from the rival city. The crowd erupts. Recognizing the guy's teammate as the prodigy who single-handedly cleared the dangerous wolf den, he steps forward, his expression locked into a focused, battle-ready intensity. The opponent acknowledges his reputation, noting he was the one who secured the highest combat power score yesterday. This display of confidence catches his attention, as he finds his new opponent genuinely interesting. The opponent voices his frustration about the competition's difficulty, admitting he is just aiming to scrape in the top 10. The guy challenges that ambition, questioning if making the top 10 is really the limit of his confidence. The opponent raises his blade, acknowledging the guy's legendary feat of soloing the wolf den. He probes for a weakness, asking exactly how much energy the guy has left after yesterday's exhaustion. The guy doesn't waste time with words, lunging forward with a sudden burst of speed to initiate the fight. The teammate launches a fierce opening strike, but the opponent parries the blade with effortless precision. Their swords lock together in a flurry of sparks as both combatants test each other's raw strength. The system UI confirms both fighters are operating at 90% efficiency, revealing another hidden expert in the bracket. The opponent mocks the teammate's urgency, betting that his stamina from yesterday's battle is already failing him. A specialized blade technique activates, cloaking the teammate's strike in an invisible edge to catch his foe off guard. The combat index spikes to 96% for the opponent, and he deflects the blow with a crushing counter. Shockwaves ripple across the arena floor as the sheer force of their collision forces them both to recoil. The opponent realizes the teammate is relying on a strength-based style, mistakenly assuming he can exploit a lack of flexibility. A glowing aura emanates from the opponent's blade, signaling he is ready to take the initiative. The teammate acknowledges his hidden recovery abilities from the crystal space, which keep him in the fight despite his injuries. Deciding he cannot afford a war of attrition, the teammate shifts his stance to end this duel immediately. He closes the distance in a blur of movement, forcing the opponent to commit to a defensive position. The opponent scoffs at the teammate's reliance on a simple thrusting technique, dismissing it as amateurish. Intense focus settles over the teammate's gaze as he prepares to shatter the opponent's guard. He channels power into a high-level piercing stance, intending to break through the opponent's defenses head-on. Golden light erupts from the teammate's blade as he executes a master-class striking maneuver. The system indicator skyrockets to 99.3%, proving the teammate is pushing far beyond his previous limits. The opponent stumbles back in disbelief, stunned by the overwhelming surge of power his rival suddenly unleashed. Every step the teammate takes leaves the ground fractured, effectively turning the arena into a prison for his foe. The opponent realizes his goal of reaching the top 10 is crumbling as the teammate dominates the final exchange. The teammate realizes his opponent is far too dangerous to face head-on, so he prioritizes evasion to survive the onslaught. Nearby observers analyze his performance, noting that despite his recent surge, his mental power remains stuck at level 9. They conclude he has yet to reach a true martial soul, leaving him just barely above the passing threshold. The scouts emphasize that reaching the elite level 10 requires mastery of either mental power or physical intensity. They agree he is a promising prospect for the city team, but still far below the tier of the top-ranked prodigies. Despite these doubts, they decide to approach him immediately with a formal letter of intent. The setting shifts to the school auditorium, where the next stage of the tournament is set to begin. The teammate makes his way toward the arena, unaware that he is already under close observation. He suddenly senses a gaze locked onto him, his combat instincts instantly alerting him to a hidden presence. Two high-ranking figures discuss his impressive perception. Clearly impressed by his ability to track their hidden location, they reveal that the school principal is personally monitoring these matches to scout talent for the most prestigious institutions. A formal announcement rings out, outlining the grueling rules for the final stage of the competition. The system will now force the top 5 finalists into a gauntlet match, where they must face everyone else. Victory in these back-to-back duels grants 2 points, while a loss subtracts 1, making every single engagement a high-stakes gamble. The rules explicitly state that the highest total score will claim the championship title. The teammate processes the grim reality of the gauntlet. Realizing he cannot afford a single mistake against such a gauntlet of foes, his thoughts turn to the elite challengers waiting for him, each one capable of stripping away his hard-earned points. He resolves to conserve every ounce of his remaining stamina. Knowing a drawn-out brawl will only favor his opponents, the bracket reveals he is set for a brutal clash in the very first round. He steels himself for the upcoming struggle, knowing his rivals have already plotted to drain his energy before the final victory. The crowd is buzzing about the tournament, betting that if their champion takes the top 3, the championship is basically in the bag. One observer scoffs at the need to even watch these finals, already convinced of the outcome, while a mysterious patron decides to drop $1 million as an investment in the teammate. He believes that a man who cares for his family will never stray, and he wants to back that potential. The current opponent enters the arena, a fighter who has been clearing his path with single, devastating sword strikes. The teammate watches closely, struggling to identify the specific martial arts style behind such raw efficiency. He decides to hang back and observe the flow of the combat before committing to his own strategy. The opponent greets him with a knowing grin, clearly anticipating the collision they both knew was coming. Their blades clash with blinding speed, the force of the strike sending shockwaves across the arena floor. The teammate realizes the technique being used in the opening exchange. He recognizes the flowing light sword art, and he immediately pivots to counter the familiar style. The opponent admits he was just as surprised to see the teammate wielding the same art yesterday. Since both fighters are masters of this specific style, the match is turning into a pure test of technical depth. The opponent shifts the stakes, proposing that they decide the winner based on raw power and physical dominance. Their blades lock together as the opponent pours on the pressure, his sword growing heavier with every passing second. The teammate notes with alarm that the opponent's martial arts index is hitting 99%, matching his own perfectly. The opponent refuses to back down, pushing his blade forward and warning that the fight is far from over. Sparks fly as they grind against each other, the sheer kinetic energy of the duel pushing them both toward their physical limit. The teammate starts to sweat, wondering how the opponent is maintaining such output without hitting a ceiling. He realizes the opponent is achieving mastery through analogy, forcing him to adapt his own tactics before the next strike lands. The opponent realizes the aura isn't just skill, it is a manifestation of spirit power. The tournament system updates the martial arts index to 99.2%. Chen Du knows he has to stop holding back if he wants to win the tournament. The opponent taunts him to strike, but Chen Du just readies his blade with focus, claiming he will end this in an instant. Chen Du launches the Azure Dragon Pierce. He lunges forward, closing the distance before the opponent can react to the shift. The opponent tries to dismiss the move as lacking lethal power, but he is wrong. Chen Du switches techniques mid-air. Catching his rival off guard with a sudden change, he cycles through forms at impossible speeds, forcing the opponent into a desperate retreat. The pressure builds until Chen Du delivers the final blow, ending the exchange. A surge of energy rips through the opponent's defenses, shattering his momentum entirely. The opponent stares at his ruined gear in total disbelief as the strike lands. Chen Du stands his ground, the system chime announcing he has reached the 100% limit. His true potential is finally unlocked, and the martial arts index officially hits the ceiling. The onlookers are stunned to see the limit break status appearing in real time. Rumors fly through the stands as everyone realizes he was hiding his strength all along. Chen Du remains collected, turning his back on the match he has already secured. The defeated opponent can only watch. Struggling to process the sudden shift in power, he wonders how Chen Du managed such a perfect sublimation without giving off a single hint. The announcement confirms the win for Chen Du, and he walks away from the wreckage. The crowd is losing their minds over his sudden jump to the 100% threshold. Observers are questioning how any fighter could bridge that gap so cleanly in just one day. Scouts watching from the shadows debate whether his performance was truly a stroke of luck. Seasoned professionals agree that such a leap is unheard of, hinting at a higher tier of talent. The conversation shifts as a group of high-ranking seniors discusses their secret arrival in the city. They admit they only came because of the intel they received about these specific prospects. One mentor boasts about his daughter's recent acceptance to a prestigious academy, dismissing the competition as mere practice. Despite his arrogance, he acknowledges that the kid who just broke his limits is one to watch. He smiles, clearly impressed by the sheer unpredictability of the tournament's latest turn. Students nearby are reeling from the major upsets, struggling to grasp why their favorites fell so fast. The female champion enters the arena, her presence drawing an instant roar from her fans. Her supporters chant her name, confident that she will dominate the entire bracket without issue. She prepares her signature defensive stance, waiting for her opponent to reveal an opening. She strikes with a speed that turns the air into a blur, dismantling the target's guard. The system updates the match result in her favor, confirming her absolute control over the fight. Her opponent is left reeling from the sheer force of the impact. Unable to counter, classmates scream in awe, praising her ability to end the conflict in a single second. MC observes the display, already calculating the difficulty of his next potential draw. The bracket officially names her as the favorite to sweep the remaining contenders. She stands tall in the center of the ring, waiting for the next challenger to step up. The tournament announcer calls out the next challenger, and all eyes shift toward the arena entrance. MC steps forward to face the girl, acknowledging her strength while keeping his own resolve steady. This is the showdown everyone wanted, and he welcomes the pressure of facing the bracket's favorite. She moves in, and he realizes this is the exact moment he needs to test his own limits. The girl taps into her full martial arts potential, her intensity spiking as she prepares to strike. A system alert confirms her index has hit 100%, pushing her power to the absolute ceiling. She unleashes a wave of focused energy that forces MC to draw his sword and stand his ground. The girl executes a high-level staff technique, flooding the arena with an overwhelming surge of force. MC matches her energy, his own martial arts index climbing rapidly to reach the century mark. He deflects her incoming tide of power, pushing back against the girl's relentless assault. She notes his unexpected skill. Realizing that MC is far more capable than his reputation suggested, he grips his blade tighter, channeling his focus into the clash of their contrasting styles. A strange blue aura begins to radiate from MC, catching the onlookers completely off guard. His teammate watches from the sidelines, finally seeing MC put his secret training to the test. The scout recognizes the shift. Realizing MC has successfully evolved his energy into a tangible martial soul, everyone watches as his spiritual power solidifies, marking a massive breakthrough in his growth. MC initiates his first strike, moving with a newfound fluidity that cuts through the surrounding air. The girl barely registers his change in tempo, reacting to a speed she hadn't anticipated. He closes the distance in a flash, turning the tide of the duel before she can adjust. MC pivots mid-motion, preparing to land the decisive blow as the crowd erupts in disbelief. MC lands a heavy blow, forcing the girl to parry with every ounce of her remaining strength. The girl wonders if this massive increase in force is the direct result of his martial soul. He maintains the relentless pressure, refusing to give her a single moment to breathe or rethink. She struggles to keep her guard up as his strikes continue to rain down with crushing weight. Spotting a flicker of hesitation in her stance, MC immediately identifies the opening he needs to exploit. His blade dances forward in a precise arc, cutting through the space between them in an instant. The girl fails to deflect the strike, losing her footing and stumbling back as her defense breaks. MC realizes her balance is compromised and knows he must capitalize on this mistake right now. She tries to regain her composure, but the constant barrage keeps her rhythm completely fractured and chaotic. He surges forward with a blinding flash of speed, dictating the pace of the duel entirely. Confidence floods his mind as he realizes the finish line is finally within his grasp today. Planting his feet firmly on the arena floor, he prepares to unleash the final sequence of attacks. The girl is overwhelmed by his intensity, and MC fully commits to closing out the victory. In the stands, the tournament officials are stunned to see his martial skill index hit the maximum. His supporters cheer wildly, urging him to finish the job and claim the tournament title. Scouts scramble to upgrade his contract status, realizing he is far more valuable than they calculated. The girl's father watches the display, his previous arrogance replaced by a tense and unreadable silence. A spectator questions why the girl's father remains so calm despite seeing his daughter losing ground. The man ignores the doubt, noting that the outcome is far from decided despite the current shift. Their blades collide one last time, setting the stage for the final, game-changing surprise to unfold. MC acknowledges the girl's sudden spike in power and speed. Realizing the duel just hit a new gear, she claims that even her demanding father would label her a prodigy. Asserting that she stands as a genius among geniuses in this arena, spectators realize her martial soul is active, combining Tier 1 limits with Level 10 spiritual energy. The girl channels this raw power into her weapon, forcing MC to react instantly. Speed becomes the only priority as MC pushes himself to match her frantic pace. Steel meets steel in a blur of strikes, neither combatant willing to give an inch. He weaves through her onslaught, his own aura flaring to counter her spiritual pressure. She tracks his movements with laser focus, looking for any opening in his defense. Their weapons clash with such force that the air around them seems to vibrate. The girl pours more spiritual energy into her assault, pushing the intensity to the breaking point. She drives him back with a relentless barrage, hoping to overwhelm his guard. Steel grinds against steel as they trade blows in a high-stakes dance of combat. She taunts him by asking why his strength has suddenly dipped during the exchange, declaring the duel finished. She moves to deliver the final blow to seal her victory. The girl admits his performance was surprising, but insists that his effort remains insufficient. She believes the outcome is already decided, closing the distance to end the fight. MC suddenly unleashes a spiritual shock, channeling his full martial soul directly into his gaze. The girl is stunned to realize he funneled his power into a focused ocular strike. The sudden surge of energy breaks her concentration, leaving her completely exposed to his counter. MC pushes his martial soul to the absolute limit, forcing a mental assault that shatters the arena's reality. The girl realizes her perception is being warped by his sheer mental pressure. Observers confirm that his ability to manifest illusions suggests a level of mental power far beyond standard martial arts. Intense spiritual energy begins to crackle around the stage as his influence takes total control. A low, humming vibration fills the air, and the girl spins around to find the source of the anomaly. A massive, shadowy avatar manifests behind her, drawing energy directly from his focused intent. The overwhelming presence of the entity forces the girl to brace herself for the inevitable impact. Lightning-like arcs of power surge along his staff as he prepares to finalize the duel. He stares her down with a gaze of cold determination, his control over the field now absolute. A blade of pure spiritual energy materializes, glowing with the intensity of his awakened potential. With a swift, calculated motion, he unleashes the strike that seals the match. The crowd erupts in disbelief as the girl falters, her supposed victory crumbling into a shocking defeat. His attack connects with pinpoint precision, dismantling her defense before she can even blink. Declaring the fight over, he stands over the girl as the system officially announces his triumph. The rival watches the outcome with a dark scowl, clearly unsettled by his rapid ascent. He vows to settle the score later, unable to accept that he has been outclassed. Officials analyze his performance and conclude that his mastery of mental arts places him at a level beyond 15. They categorize his raw potential as a rare S-class entity, a discovery that changes everything for the Academy. The principal's associates realize that he is a strategic asset who must be secured for their long-term plans. They move quickly to intercept him, desperate to bring this new powerhouse under the principal's control. An academy official presses the principal for an answer regarding a high-stakes recruitment strategy. The principal acknowledges the recruit's immense potential, but remains wary of the regulatory backlash. Bringing a family into the academy's high-tier sphere is a clear violation of existing martial arts protocols. The official argues that signing the recruit is their only path to victory against competing universities. Securing this powerhouse early is the only way to avoid another humiliating third-place finish next month. Hesitation clouds the principal as he weighs the political risks against the necessity of winning. Back at the arena, the crowd celebrates as the recruit is officially crowned the tournament champion. He reflects on his victory, noting how his mental power spiked just enough to master a new technique. Victory was far from guaranteed, and he knows his opponent could have easily countered his moves. Despite the narrow margins, he accepts the win and moves on from the hypothetical what-ifs. Inside the principal's private office, an assistant arrives to report on the post-tournament situation. She steps into the room and notes the principal's absence from the official award ceremony. The assistant questions why he skipped the event, especially since the champion has already departed. He dismisses the missed opportunity, already looking ahead to the next phase of his agenda. He orders the assistant to inform the high-ranking deacons of his new, long-term strategic shift. Declaring that the dynasty plan is now officially in motion, he sets his sights on complete control. The assistant confirms the order, fully aware of the scale of the operation they are beginning. The academy towers over the city as the principal prepares to tighten his grip on the future. Meanwhile, the champion enjoys a quiet meal, unaware of the schemes forming in the higher offices. His father arrives to offer a proud toast, celebrating a championship win that has changed their lives forever. The champion shares a victory meal with his father, and the celebration marks the end of their financial struggles. He feels the weight of the world lift off his shoulders, knowing his family is finally safe. They clink glasses in a moment of genuine relief. Unaware of the peace they are enjoying is about to shatter. As he walks his sister to school, the city skyline looms large behind them. He decides to move into the academy dorms to keep his training intense and avoid outside distractions. His sister teases him about his sudden popularity, promising to keep his reputation untarnished at school. He brushes off the joke with a grin, focused entirely on the path ahead. She starts to wonder if his fan base is the real reason he is staying away. Her playful taunting dies out as a sudden, unnatural pressure begins to blanket the city streets. A creature of pure shadow manifests in the open, radiating a hostile energy that stops them in their tracks. He recognizes the monster as a high-level demon, and the lack of an official invasion alarm signals a massive security failure. The city is supposed to be protected, yet this threat has clearly been lurking beneath the surface all along. The shadow demon reveals 8 distinct barbs, confirming its rank as a life intensity level 8 monster. He realizes his sister is in immediate danger and shouts for her to escape. The demon lunges with lethal intent, a dark limb slicing through the air straight toward their position. He barely dodges the initial strike, his mind racing to formulate a counter-strategy against such a powerful beast. His primary weapon is back at home, so he scans the debris-filled street for anything he can wield. He spots a discarded metal pipe buried in the wreckage and tears it from the rubble. Channeling his internal energy into the makeshift weapon, he prepares for a desperate defensive stand. The demon closes the distance instantly, forcing him to engage in a life-or-death struggle within the city limits. The champion channels his focus, pushing his sword art to its absolute limit. His technique shifts as he realizes that even a simple movement can carry the weight of a blade. Blue energy erupts from his makeshift weapon, carving through the darkness as he strikes. He immediately notes that the rigid steel rebar lacks the flexibility needed for a perfect stance. The shadow demon recoils from the impact, but the creature remains a formidable threat. A sharp collision rings out as the champion forces the demon into a defensive retreat. He uses the brief opening to reposition himself, keeping his distance from the beast. The demon's life intensity is still significantly higher than his own, making a head-on win nearly impossible. Survival becomes the only priority, and he begins to weigh his chances of making a clean escape. The creature ignores his presence and targets his sister, shifting its focus entirely. She shouts a desperate challenge to draw the monster away, determined to protect him in return. The demon lunges toward her, its massive shadow engulfing her position on the street. Fury takes over as he launches himself forward, intent on shielding her at any cost. His eyes lock onto the enemy with lethal clarity. Executing a heavy stomp to close the distance, The shadow demon readies a counter-strike, its form shimmering with unstable dark energy. A system notification confirms his sword art has leveled up, reaching a new milestone under pressure. He realizes that his technique isn't limited by the weapon he holds, but by his own comprehension. Applying this insight, he turns the rebar into an extension of his will, striking with newfound precision. The metal connects with the demon's core, but the force of the blow begins to fracture the steel. He stares in disbelief as his only weapon snaps in half, leaving him vulnerable once again. The demon's core shatters under the final strike, and the creature's form begins to dissolve into nothing. He realizes the threat is finally neutralized, leaving him breathless and reeling from the sudden end of the fight. The broken pieces of his makeshift weapon fall to the ground, serving as a reminder of how close he came to defeat. He turns his attention toward his sister, desperately checking her status now that the immediate danger has passed. Realizing he needs backup, just in case, he orders his device to transmit a distress signal to the authorities. The demon surges forward one last time with unnatural speed, forcing him to scramble for a desperate defense. He knows the city defense corps won't make it in time, so he has to handle the remaining shadow energy alone, calculating the trajectory of the incoming strike. He prepares to use the demon's own force to shove his sister to safety. He locks his focus on the target, pushing his senses to the limit to ensure he doesn't miss the timing. The impact lands with a heavy thud, finally silencing the creature for good. As the dark energy dissipates into the night, he exhales a breath of relief, looking at his sister to confirm she is completely unharmed by the encounter. A member of the city defense corps arrives on the scene, reporting that the target has been successfully eliminated. The defender introduces himself to the duo, explaining that he received the distress call from a local citizen. She rushes to his side in shock, calling out to him as the reality of the situation begins to set in. He identifies himself to the officer, confirming his status as a student from the local high school. Meanwhile, the school principal watches the scene from the shadows, observing the aftermath of the battle with a calculated gaze. He notes that the student's display of mental martial arts was unexpected, nearly causing an accident during the struggle. Planning for the student's safety, the principal reveals that he had already coordinated for backup to be stationed nearby. His eyes narrow as he contemplates the hidden potential he just witnessed, clearly harboring his own secret agenda. He stares out at the city skyline from the school building, knowing that this encounter is only the beginning of his plan. The champion sits alone checking a digital update, his mind clearly racing after the chaos of the recent battle. A message from the sister confirms she is keeping his injuries and their recent struggle a secret from their parents. He clutches his arm in pain, the physical toll of the fight finally catching up to his exhausted body. Looking at his own battered skin, he realizes he was far too naive about the true danger lurking in the shadows. He clenches his fist in frustration, promising himself he won't be caught off guard by a similar threat ever again. Memories of the shadow demon's dark energy his mind, reinforcing how close he came to losing everything. He understands now that if a real disaster struck while he was away at university, he would be powerless to save his family. Reflecting on his defeat, he knows his current martial arts level is vastly insufficient to handle elite-tier threats. He realizes that without massive, high-level resources, he cannot hope to bridge the gap between himself and the truly strong. The champion shifts his mindset from merely surviving to becoming an unstoppable force that can crush enemies before they even attack. His resolve hardens as he decides to accelerate his training, aiming to reach a level where speed and power negate all danger. The school principal unexpectedly arrives at his room, holding a gift box and sporting a strangely calm, calculated expression. He asks the principal why he is visiting, and the man explains the gift is a reward for his performance in the city tournament. The principal notes that the school's reputation improved significantly thanks to the champion's record-breaking victory, holding the trophy in his memory. The champion acknowledges that his success has pushed the university's prestige to a new height. This victory has unlocked new levels of competitiveness for the school, attracting more resources and attention than ever before. He accepts the gift from the principal, still wary of the man's true intentions behind this sudden display of generosity. The champion questions how the principal is so familiar with the history and secrets of the private martial arts room. The principal reveals that the room originally belonged to him, but claims it suits the champion's potential much better now. The principal abruptly changes the subject, pointing out the champion's dirty clothes and asking why he looks like he has been rolling in the dirt. The champion decides to ignore the earlier warnings, choosing to press the school principal for answers about the strange events of the night. He voices his growing unease to the man, demanding a straight explanation for what is really going on behind the scenes. He recounts his recent encounter with a high-level silver demon, questioning why such dangerous monsters are prowling within the city. The school principal reacts with immediate intensity, clearly having waited for the champion to finally stumble upon this dangerous truth. The champion clarifies that he remains uninjured, yet he insists on knowing why this information is kept hidden from him. The school principal explains that this knowledge is restricted to elite martial artists, fearing that public exposure would lead to mass panic. The champion asks exactly what kind of catastrophe the man is predicting if the truth were ever leaked. The school principal ominously warns that the entire order of their martial arts civilization would collapse under the weight of such a revelation. The two men step through a gateway, leaving the familiar territory of the seventh ecological circle far behind them. They emerge into a desolate, empty wasteland that stands in stark contrast to the bustling city they just left. The school principal watches the champion closely, gauging his reaction to this barren landscape that defies his expectations. The champion admits he anticipated a blood-soaked battlefield, but finds only a quiet, abandoned expanse that feels deeply unsettling. The school principal turns the conversation toward power levels, asking how the champion rates humanity's combat potential against the monsters. The champion reasons that since humans are fighting invaders from 3 different civilizations, they should logically be the stronger force. The school principal drops a massive bombshell, revealing that humanity has never actually been invaded by these alien forces. The champion is floored by this correction, struggling to reconcile the news with the history of destruction he has always known. He thinks back to the reports of annihilated cities. Yet the school principal insists those were not tactical military strikes. The school principal clarifies that while the cities were indeed destroyed, the media narrative about an organized invasion is a complete fabrication. He explains that these alien entities were merely passing through, and the human casualties were just collateral damage on a massive scale. The school principal reveals that the ecological circles were built centuries ago as glorified shields to prevent humanity from being harvested as food. The champion stares at the map of humanity's tiny, isolated territory, realizing the entire species is crammed onto a single tectonic plate. The school principal explains that this extreme lack of space forces martial artists to raid alien territories just for basic survival. He notes that the 7th ecological circle is currently lucky to face only bottom-tier threats, unlike the higher-pressure zones. The champion questions how humanity could possibly survive a full-scale clash if they united, but the school principal dismisses that ideal as a fantasy. He scoffs at the media's narrative of organized confrontation, labeling it another layer of the global deception. Even small-scale skirmishes against the hunter civilization are manageable, yet a total war remains a death sentence for the entire race. By splitting humanity into these 9 isolated circles, the architects ensure that a single disaster cannot wipe out the population entirely. The school principal highlights that despite this fragility, humanity has managed to cultivate 3 powerful protectors over the last century. He warns that this growth has a dangerous side effect, drawing the predatory attention of alien civilizations that treat them as livestock. The school principal emphasizes that constant, rapid evolution is the only way to delay the day humanity's true status is exposed. His hand grips the champion's shoulder, urging him to internalize the reality that their entire history is a desperate race against extinction. The champion glances at the clock, his mind racing as he processes the shattering realization that the medium-strength alien threat is a lie. The school principal tests him, asking if he remembers the infamous sneak attack that devastated a major city in the past. The champion recalls the horrifying event where thousands were crushed by falling giants, a tragedy officially labeled as a random passing event. The school principal drops the ultimate truth, revealing those giants were not tactical invaders but simply alien creatures looking for food. He describes a massive avian predator passing overhead, its casual movement causing devastating collateral damage to the city below. The champion realizes his years of training and pride in humanity's martial progress mean nothing compared to the scale of these casual predators. The weight of the truth hits him, and he mutters that he was planning to prove himself in the upcoming university exam. The school principal watches him closely, confirming that the entire competitive structure of the school is built on these false premises. He delivers the final blow, telling the champion that he no longer needs to participate in that charade at all. The champion stares at the sudden A-rank contract appearing on his interface, wondering why he received such a high-tier offer after rejecting their previous attempts. The school principal explains that this offer comes from a high martial civilization that values raw potential over the standard university rankings. He breaks down the contract details, revealing it includes massive spiritual energy subsidies and rare blood medicine designed to skyrocket the champion's vitality before the entrance exam. His expression turns serious as he adds a condition, warning that the champion's family must relocate to a high-pressure ecological circle to maintain the city's secrecy. The champion nods, realizing this deal provides the resources to protect his family and boost his strength far faster than he ever imagined. He listens as the school principal clarifies why civilian movement is strictly controlled, explaining that free relocation would trigger resource imbalances and mass panic between the ecological sectors. His jaw drops when the interface displays the value of his new medicine. Reaching a staggering 10 million credits that leaves him stunned, the school principal chuckles at his shock, noting that 10 million is a drop in the bucket compared to the actual costs of high-level martial development. The champion expresses his gratitude for the help, though the school principal brushes it off, claiming he is just facilitating a path for a student with true potential. He insists that the real credit belongs to the teacher who pushed for this behind the scenes, emphasizing the selfless nature of her support. The champion looks toward the horizon at the mention of the teacher, knowing she has been looking out for him all along. The school principal mentions that the teacher is currently on a patrol mission, and they need to catch up with her to discuss the next steps. They find the teacher and her partner standing ready in the field, both radiating an intense aura. As they guard the perimeter, the school principal watches as the teacher demonstrates her technique, layering spiritual energy to secure her equipment against any external interference. He notes that the teacher's current vitality level makes her nearly invincible in a conventional skirmish, though she must remain wary of wandering alien threats. The champion observes her equipment, realizing she favors short blades while her partner relies on a different, more specialized combat style. The school principal drops a sarcastic remark about the teacher's secretive nature, teasing that she has plenty more hidden talents she hasn't revealed yet. They board a transport aircraft as the night sky settles over the city, the heavy blades of the chopper cutting through the quiet air. The school principal warns him to be careful about where he invests his energy, reminding him that the university entrance exam is a trap for those who put all their eggs in one basket. The champion smiles faintly, assuring him that he understands the game they are playing, and he is far from being a naive fool. The champion decides it is finally time to push his vitality to the next level. Before he can focus, he finds the kid safe and secure. While a status report confirms the target is gone, a spear-wielding guard approaches the scene, reporting that the perimeter is clear and the threat has been neutralized. The guard introduces himself as the responder who arrived just in time to stop the monster from causing any real damage. The kid finally speaks up, calling out to her brother as the tension of the near miss begins to fade. The younger guy introduces himself as a student from the local high school, clearly shaken by the night's events. Turning his attention to the school principal, the champion demands an explanation for the hidden mental-type martial art involved. The school principal brushes off the concern, claiming he set up these guards as a safety measure for the kid. He reveals that he orchestrated this entire chance encounter to teach the champion a lesson about how the world really works. Shadows cross the school principal's face as he watches the champion, his motives clearly extending far beyond simple student safety. The city skyline looms over them, hiding the true scope of the experiments taking place within the university walls. The champion sits alone on the rooftop, checking his messages and reflecting on the narrow escape he just had. A digital screen confirms the younger guy is safe and will keep their secret from their parents to avoid any worry. Rubbing his arm, the champion realizes the physical cost of his current limitations in the face of such overwhelming power. The blood on his skin serves as a grim reminder that his current training is nowhere near enough to survive. Realizing he has been living in a fantasy, the champion admits he was far too naive about the true nature of his surroundings. Clenching his fist, he understands that his past confidence was just a mask for his own lack of preparation. Monstrous energy surges in the distance, showing him that danger has been lurking at his side this entire time. A massive claw rips through the air, proving that if he were left to fight alone, he would have been crushed instantly. He finally sees the bitter truth that relying on university resources makes him a slave to their agenda, and he is still far too weak to change his own fate. The champion realizes his previous approach was far too simplistic and decides he needs to outpace his enemies entirely. Speed becomes his only priority now, as he vows to grow strong enough to crush every threat before they even launch an attack. A sudden knock at his door interrupts his training, and he finds the principal standing there late at night. Claiming to be in the neighborhood, the principal offers a mysterious gift as a token of appreciation for recent events. The champion accepts the package, watching as the school leader frames the gesture as gratitude for his tournament success, acknowledging the champion's record-breaking performance. The school principal explains how this victory boosted the institution's recruiting power to a new level. Memories of his championship moment flash back, showing the peak of his career thus far. The principal emphasizes how much the school owes him for that win, but the champion senses there is more to this visit. Holding the gift, the champion watches the principal head toward the refrigerator as if he owns the entire room. The visitor casually helps himself to a drink, and the champion bluntly asks why he seems so familiar with the martial arts quarters. This room was originally his, the school principal reveals, dropping the casual act for a moment. Surprised by the admission, the champion listens as the principal remarks that the space simply suits him better now. Noticing the champion's disheveled state, the principal pivots to why his clothes are dirty, implying he knows exactly what happened. Despite orders to keep the incident quiet, the champion realizes his visitor is perfectly aware of the recent combat, deciding to stop dancing around the issue. The champion demands to know why a dangerous level 8 demon was roaming the city. The principal's expression shifts instantly, and he asks if the champion was hurt during the encounter. Feigning ignorance while checking the champion for injuries, the principal prepares to drop a truth that will change everything. The school principal leans in, stating that this secret is restricted only to high-level martial artists for a very specific reason. He warns that the entire foundation of their civilization will crumble once the public learns the truth about their world. The weight of this revelation hits the champion, as he finally realizes the history he was taught is nothing but a lie. Stepping through the portal into the 7th ecological circle, the champion finds himself staring at a desolate, barren landscape. Silence hangs over the empty horizon where he expected a raging war zone. Observing the champion's confusion, the school principal asks if this desolate reality matches his expectations. The champion admits he anticipated a blood-soaked battlefield rather than this lonely, abandoned island. Shifting to a more serious tone, the school principal asks how the champion perceives the strength of their enemies compared to their own. Pondering the question, the champion reasons that while they face 3 different civilizations, they should still hold the advantage in one-on-one combat. The school principal cuts him off, dropping a bombshell claim that they have never actually been invaded by anyone. Stunned by the contradiction, the champion struggles to process the implication of those words, recalling the news reports and footage of cities leveled by alien forces. The champion questions how that destruction could be faked. The school principal clarifies that while the destruction of those cities was very real, it was never a coordinated invasion. He explains that these alien entities were merely passing through, and the ecological circles were created as a desperate measure to remain unnoticed, pointing toward the vast, empty expanse. The school principal shows that there are no resources here worth the aliens' attention. The human race has been hiding in these tiny, isolated pockets of land for centuries just to avoid becoming food for superior civilizations. The school principal notes that their high mortality rate is a direct consequence of raiding alien territories for the resources needed to survive. He points out that their current circle only deals with bottom-tier threats, while other circles face far more terrifying civilizations. The champion wonders if uniting all 9 circles would grant them the power to stop hiding. The school principal dismisses that idea, pointing to the media's false narrative as a distraction from their true weakness. He explains that even small-scale skirmishes have proven that they cannot win a direct confrontation against the hunter civilization. The strategy of dividing their forces across 9 circles is a calculated gamble to ensure they are not wiped out in a single blow. He concludes by highlighting that even with the growth of their strongest warriors, they are still just playing a game of survival. The school principal warns that rapid development risks drawing unwanted attention from more advanced civilizations. He emphasizes that their goal must be to become too difficult for these entities to bother with. The champion struggles to process the revelation that their military strength is a total sham compared to the galaxy. Questioning the past, he recalls the devastating sneak attack on his home city. The school principal drops a bombshell by revealing that the giant bird was simply eating its meal. He argues that if a single bird could cause such massive casualties, humanity is nowhere near the power level they claim. The champion realizes his entire understanding of their high civilization was a fragile illusion that could be shattered at any moment, despite the existential dread. He insists on pushing forward with his plan to join the elite university next month. The school principal abruptly cuts him off, stating that such a path is no longer necessary. A high-level contract suddenly flashes on the champion's interface, catching him off guard. The school principal explains that an A-rank contract is the only way to secure a future for talented individuals in this reality. He notes that the university contract offers significant subsidies and a massive boost to Blood Chi. The school principal delivers a cold reality check, revealing the champion's family remains barred from relocating to the safer city. He clarifies that if the border city falls, the family will be lost in the total annihilation of the sector. The champion accepts the weight of this condition, knowing he must grow stronger to survive the inevitable collapse. The school principal explains that strict relocation policies are designed to prevent mass panic and economic instability across the circles. Seeing a massive injection of funds for his medicine, the champion is floored by the sheer scale of the investment. He stammers as he realizes the cost of the blood K medicine is far beyond anything he imagined. The school principal brushes off the gratitude, redirecting credit to the teacher behind the scenes. The champion acknowledges the mysterious support, finally understanding the true cost of his survival. The school principal dismisses the champion's gratitude, shifting focus to the teachers preparing for a patrol mission. He highlights the specific combat styles of the two instructors as they manifest their distinct spiritual auras. One teacher specializes in an energy attachment technique that reinforces her natural vitality and combat presence. The other instructor wields a blade and possesses a near-invincible status within his current martial tier. The champion observes their equipment, realizing that each teacher utilizes unique abilities tailored for high-stakes survival. The school principal confirms that these techniques are state secrets, though he trusts the teacher will share them with the champion. As night falls over the campus, a transport helicopter arrives to ferry them toward their next operation. The school principal pivots to a stern lecture, reminding the champion that survival requires strategic, multi-layered thinking. The champion acknowledges the lesson. Confirming he understands the gravity of the 16-character policy, he realizes that his own lack of knowledge is a liability he can no longer afford to carry. The champion decides to immediately utilize the marrow cleansing pill to push his vitality to the next level. Watching the moonlight, he prepares to embark on the path of power that will finally secure his family's future.